T minus 30 seconds. T minus 20 seconds. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Kush's Corner here on the Trap Talk Reptile Network, the coolest reptile network in the world. Tonight, I have the pleasure of being joined by Dr. Warren Booth of BOA Booth. He is also a geneticist at Virginia Tech, and we got a lot of very fun topics to get into tonight. Warren is a bit of a BOA master. He's also works with a number of pythons as well. Overall, just one of my favorite people in the hobby, so I'm very excited to finally get Warren on the show. Before we get into that, of course, as always, though, USARK. So USARK is the organization that is fighting for our rights to keep our reptiles, to run our reptile businesses, and to live this lifestyle. Check out usark.org for everything you need to know about the organization. That website is where you can find alerts to new pieces of legislation introduced either at local levels or the national level. That is also where you can find alerts as to the new pieces of legislation, any sort of updates. usark.org is also where you can become a member of the organization. As a community, we have strength in numbers, and the more people that are behind the cause, the better. And here we are. Thank you to everybody who is tuned in either live, checking us out after the fact. If you are here on YouTube, if you're not already, please subscribe to the channel. New podcasts come out every single day of the week here on the Trap Talk Reptile Network from some of the best hosts in the industry, talking about a wide variety of reptile-related topics. So if you are a reptile podcast fan, you have come to the right place. But if you are like myself and are more of an audio person, we are on all the major platforms, be that Spotify, Apple, Google, wherever you get your podcast from. You can find the Trap Talk Reptile Network. A follow and a 5-star review on any of those platforms would be most appreciated. And for all the kind of behind the scenes, inside scoops to everything I have going on, patreon.com/KushReptile is the place to go. It's the best way to support everything that I have going on, the podcast, get an inside scoop on the breeding projects, early access, everything like that. 50% of all membership immediately becomes credit towards the acquisition of a new animal, and that credit never expires. So if you guys could check that out, that would be most appreciated. But with that housekeeping out of the way, let's bring Warren onto the show. What's going on, man? Thank you for being here with me tonight.
Hey, Steve. It's good to see you.
Likewise. Yeah, it was good seeing you at Tinley. It had been quite some time since we were actually at the same show together.
Yeah, I think that was my first Tinley in a few years, and before that it had been maybe 12 years before I'd been back to it. But there was two reasons. I had a USARK board meeting, so I was there for that. But also it was the first time that I vended at the show. So my buddy Lucas Matlock and my buddy Jonathan Harvey, we all had a table.
Yeah,
and brought up some animals. So it was definitely fun being on that side of the aisle, But I also meant that I didn't get to see most of the stuff that was going on at Tinley, and it was so busy that
it was.
Yeah, it also meant that I didn't spend anything, which was good, but I didn't buy anything.
Yes, so that's always a good plus.
Yeah, I'll be back there again in October.
Okay, wonderful. It was interesting because the crowd dynamic was different, because I remember on Saturday morning some of the vendors almost kind of being a little worried, like, where is everybody? But then there was just a steady flow the entire day.
Yeah, it was continuing.
And then Sunday the line was enormous. It was like almost, it was like out the door. So yeah, definitely atypical, where normally everything's very front loaded on Saturday, dwindles down by I feel like by like 4 o'clock on Saturday, it was still very hard to walk through the room.
Yeah, it was, I left here in Virginia at like 8 a.m. On the Friday morning and drove over. So it's about a 10-hour drive. I had to drop my son to school. So I missed the VIP setup. I just made it right on time for the USARK board meeting. So basically I was setting up first thing on Saturday morning, and within the first hour we'd sold out of womas. I'd sold some rainbow boas. I couldn't believe it. It was really productive. Yeah. So hopefully the fall will be just as good.
Yeah. I mean, you guys had a really fantastic display, and I think I even complimented you on the lighting at the display. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's all Lucas's setup. He's a fantastic boa breeder. So if people want to get boas, look up Matlock Morphs. He's got some incredible stuff, but he's invested in those next level displays. In fact, I've got them right there because I'm going to buy some myself.
Okay.
He also bought that kind of custom lighting, which is it's pretty intense. Another friend of mine, Dave, the Apex Constrictors, he's got the same lighting, and the color really pop on those animals. So I think it's worth it. They're not cheap, but I think it's worth the investment if you're going to really try and sell some really colorful animals, because the colors really come out of them. So yeah, that table was 3/4 of that was Lucas Matlocks, and then that kind of one setup. But I didn't have that much left over from the season. We had a few pairs of womas, some Brazilian rainbow boas, and a handful of boas, and some leopard geckos. But it was, and thankfully by the end of the show I had a lot less as well, so that was kind of good.
Yeah, I mean, you guys also had a very good location as well. It's a pretty great place for a table.
Yeah, we were lucky because Bob Ashley's a good friend of mine, and I was able to call him up and say, hey, any chance? And he was like, yeah, I'll fit you in. Nice. And I thought it was going to be one of these kind of tables, against the wall, but we got a really good location, so we got that again for the fall, which should be great.
Yeah. Okay.
I just have to hope that I produce some snakes to be able to bring with me.
I don't doubt your ability to fill up a table at October Tinley.
We'll see.
Okay. Yeah. Everything at the table looked fantastic. With those Costa Rican T positives really jumped off the table at me, man. Those were just, I mean, I've seen you post them, but then actually seeing the babies in person was like, okay.
Yeah. And they're incredible in that every time they shed, they get better. So it's hard to bring a baby because, unlike ball pythons that look their best when they're babies, these kind of look their worst when they're babies, and they just get better and better. When we did the Atlanta show last August, and I brought an adult with me, and people just kind of were blown away by it. Showing an adult and one of its offspring side by side, and they couldn't believe the change. So it was they're neat, and I've been working with those for I think close to 20 years. And so kind of refining them as well, and they're bred them into a bunch of different things, and they look really good.
Yeah, I've definitely got some questions for you later on about them, but that's always something I've never done, the bring the adult at a reptile show, but man, it seems to work, especially like what you were saying about them not looking their best when they're young. That's like everything I have. So it's hard to sell. I mean, I don't want to say it's hard to sell, but to somebody who is unaware, seeing a baby that looks nothing like the adult, or looks maybe 30% of what it will, having that big adult right there definitely helps the customer kind of orient themselves with what exactly they're looking at.
Yeah, well, for me, it's a lot easier considering the snake's 4.5 feet long. True. For you, it would be a very different story.
That's true. Yeah. No question about it. Okay. Yeah, man. So it's been what, like we were saying beforehand, 5 or 6 years since we've done a podcast. It's
been a while, so I was living in Oklahoma at the time. So I moved here. I moved here 3.5 years ago.
Okay.
And it was definitely maybe two, could have even been 3 years prior to that there. It's at least 5 years, maybe 6.
Yeah, it was either 2020 or 2021. Definitely no later than that. How are you liking Virginia? That's definitely quite the different scene than Oklahoma.
Yeah, no, I love it. So whenever I moved to the US, I moved to Raleigh, North Carolina, and I was there for nearly 7 years. We got a lot of friends there. I worked at NC State, and we got a lot of friends there. And the faculty position came up in Tulsa, and when we moved there, we loved it. It's a really cool city. It's not representative of Oklahoma in that it's got a cool midtown, and we really like living there. But the opportunity to come here to Virginia Tech, you know, was one that I just couldn't turn down. The position is, it's an endowed chair position, and there's a lot of money with it, and a great research facility. And, you know, it's one of 7 of these positions in the US. So I couldn't turn it down. You know, they offered that they made me. And I love it. You know, I love being back kind of on the East Coast or Eastern US.
Yeah.
Virginia is a cool place, and where we're right up in the Appalachians, in the Shenandoah Valley. So it's beautiful, you know. So, and we're only, you know, we're 3 hours from Raleigh, we're 3.5, 4 hours from DC, you know. So we're close to other places, you know. Atlanta's like 6 hours away, that kind of thing, you know.
That's what's so nice about being out east, is just nothing's ever too far.
Right.
Where, I mean, I'm experiencing that out here, of like, there's no city within 4 hours of me in the US, at least. And, you know, Oklahoma is, I mean, obviously you have Oklahoma City, but Tulsa, OKC, kind of one and the same in a way.
Yeah. They're about an hour and a half apart.
Yeah.
You know, 45 minutes, you know, but they're very, very different cities.
Sure.
So yeah, and it's amazing. In my 11 years in Oklahoma, I think I went to Oklahoma City like 3 times.
Oh, really?
Yeah, once to the zoo, once for a concert, and once to the university there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And it's weird because it's only an hour and a half away. But yeah. But I like Tulsa. It was a very different, very, very different feel than Oklahoma City. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, my only Tulsa experience has been each time I've driven back and forth from Indiana to El Paso. That's always where I've stayed.
Yeah.
Tulsa. It's like the dead center of it.
Well, if you ever need recommendations for places to eat or drink, I can definitely help you out there.
Okay. Yeah, because I have kind of been in my mind, like, playing what it would look like if I were to vend like Tinley or Colubrid Fest, and then have to potentially drive out there. You know, figuring out dates and stuff like that, because it's, I mean, going a distance like that for a show is
a long way.
Man.
It's a long way. It's a long way for you, you know. Like for me, you know, I don't mind driving. I think I've said it before on podcasts, but in the first 6 months that I was living here that I was working at Virginia Tech, I was living in Oklahoma. So I was commuting back and forth every 2 weeks. So it's about a 14.5-hour drive. So, and that was for 6 months. So I don't mind driving. So 10 hours to go to Tinley is nothing.
Sure.
But you know, you've to add in, you've got animals boxed up. You've got, you know, you're there for 3 days if animals are on display. And when it's something like a rainbow boa, which are so sensitive to dehydration, you know, you got to be, so there I was watering them, and you got to be careful with that. And then, you know, what would have been nice is if I could have then stayed over an extra night, like the Sunday night, and then drove back on the Monday morning. But I was teaching on the Monday morning, so I had to pack up straight away, and I was in my truck, and I think I rolled into here at about 3 a.m. Yeah, it was it was a rough drive coming back, but after being such a productive show, kind of it made it worth it.
Sure.
You know, originally I was going to fly, and just, you know, go for the board meeting, but whenever we were able to get that table, it made sense to bring animals up with me, and I'm glad I did, because they sold, which was good. Yeah. But doing it longer, you know, so for example, if you were in Texas and then vending Tinley, you know, that's a long journey.
Yeah, it's a 23-hour drive.
Yeah, I don't know if I could do that. What I would probably do would be to ship animals up, but then again, and then if you got displays, you could probably bring them on as luggage, you know, on a plane. But you know, I've seen that happen before with people just shipping animals over. But again, it depends on what your display is like, and all that kind of stuff, you know.
Yeah, you know, I mean, since I've been here in Texas, I have only vended 3 shows. Right. So it's just not a priority for me.
Which was it? Did you do the NARBC, the Dallas one, or
no? Just 3 Pomonas.
Okay. Oh, you did Pomona. Well, yeah. That's a pretty long drive as well from where you are.
Yeah, about 12 hours to Pomona.
I thought it would be longer than that.
No, because I'm as far west as you can get. This is kind of like a funny tidbit, but like where I'm at in El Paso, I'm closer to San Diego. So put in a little bit of perspective. And that's normally to do that show, I go to San Diego first, stop over with MJ, and so it makes it a little bit easier. Where Dallas is like 8.5, 9 hours.
Right. Yeah. I need to get over. Oh, Dallas is 9 hours from you. I didn't realize that. Oh my God.
Yeah. It's far.
Yeah, I need to get over to the Pomona show.
Yeah.
I think we're having the US ARC board meeting there next year, so there's an excuse to go. And
Okay.
MJ keeps hitting me up about attending one of his parties. So
yeah,
it's do that there. Get in a day earlier. So so it's been a while since I've been over on the West Coast, so it'll be definitely fun. And I've never been to a reptile show on the West Coast, and I've heard they're kind of very different animals, literally, to what you get in the Midwest and the East Coast.
Yeah, definitely. I really like the Pomona show. You get a really solid colubrid variety at the shows. Oftentimes some cool lizard vendors, be it, Uromastics, always some good chameleons out there, stuff like that. Just a really much more chill vibe at those shows, which kind of, in line with California in general. But it's very fun. I always highly recommend it to anybody. It's especially the January one. The January show is the show to go to. I would say for me, it's top three with October, Tinley, and Daytona as far as my favorite shows.
Yeah, I'll have to look into it.
Absolutely. Are you going to be at IHS this year?
I'm meant to be giving the keynote speech. Yeah, so I should be.
There you go. Okay, that would definitely do it.
Yeah, I think they want me to talk about the history of boa breeding for their keynote. Awesome. The plan is to do that. Okay. Yeah, I'm doing that, and I'm doing one of the Minneapolis or the Minnesota Herp Society. I'm doing them at Christmas, I think, this year.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, IHS is always fun. I go to that whenever I can.
Yeah.
And this year, it'll be a big year. There's going to be some big names in the hobby going to be there. Like we hope Dave Barker's going to be there. Rich Eiley, a bunch of those guys. So, and it's always fun to sit down and hang out with Dave and Rich and stuff. So, yeah, I like it. It's a fun location as well. What's funny about it is that I've been there so many times for different meetings, and my friend Gordon Shewitt lives there, and Bob's obviously there, so I get out there quite a bit, and I don't think I've ever been out herping once.
Really?
Yeah, I've always been tied up with the meeting and doing other stuff, having a beer with friends, and so I need to make an effort. Obviously you see stuff, you drive, right. where I stay is normally up at the Portal store. There's a Portal Lodge, and when you're driving up Portal Road, you're always guaranteed to see a bunch of stuff, whether it's a big Atrox or speckled kings or whatever, so you can see a lot on the roads, which is kind of cool.
Yeah,
absolutely. But the Fish and Wildlife are out in force at that thing, so make sure you got your permits, your licenses, because if they see you with a snake hook in your vehicle, and you have a permit, or if they see you on the road moving an animal and you don't have a permit, you're not going to have a fun time.
No, not whatsoever. Yeah, that's one of my goals this year, is to make it to IHS. I just, for so many reasons, and amongst those, there's a chance I'll probably never be so close to where IHS is again.
Right. I think it'll be there. I think it'll be there more frequently, because Bob is so tied up with IHS and the fact that he's got his own convention center basically in the museum there.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a perfect size for IHS. The big problem is finding accommodation. You're in the middle of nowhere, and there's limited accommodation. So if you're going, it's best to book early, or else to go camping. That's an option.
I think I have somewhere to stay nearby. Otherwise, I have the ability to go to Tucson.
Okay.
So make it work one way or another. But just with the lineups and everybody who says they're going to be going, and oh man, it would be a real shame to miss that weekend. The museum is so amazing. I've only been there once, but I absolutely loved it. So
so you haven't been there since he built the library.
So
you have the convention center, that part of the convention building, and then right beside it there's another building now which is the same size, and it's just a library. It's just a herp library, which is incredible.
Must not have.
I think he just opened it. So I was there last year for the biology of pit vipers meeting,
Okay.
And I think he just opened it then, so it's only been about a year.
Okay, sure. So I went in 22.
Yeah, wouldn't have been open.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so I'm definitely a little extra added incentive to get out there then.
Yeah, but it's, everything about it is cool. Like the outdoor exhibits that he's got are brilliant. They're a bit Jurassic Park in that you never see anything. But you'll see tortoises and stuff here and there, but you never see the Gila monsters or the chuck. Well, sometimes you see the chuckwallas. But what's cool is if you go in the morning and you just kind of walk on the perimeter of it on the outside, sometimes you'll find hognose snakes going along the edges. You'll find stuff. It's definitely a cool place, and then obviously the museum part inside is pretty neat as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Lisa's comment here definitely rings true that it's not a very convenient place to get to.
No.
Why
what was even worse? We had a biology of snakes meeting there, and I can't remember, that was like 2015, 2016, maybe somewhere around then. And at that point, once you got 30 miles from there, you had no cell signal. So I was over, I forgot what time of year it was, maybe in November, and I think my wife was pregnant. No, was she? Yeah, I think my wife was pregnant, and I didn't have cell signal for 3 days. So I was kind of panicking, that thankfully now they put up one of these towers and they've got AT&T and Verizon and all that kind of stuff. So it's all, it's all good there. The other thing that's really weird about that place is that where the museum is, you go across the street and you go from New Mexico into Arizona. Yeah. And there's a 1 hour time difference. Yeah. And the restaurant that most people go to is right across the street. It's called the Sky Island Bar and Grill.
I think
I've never seen so many people with PhDs so confused about time. So I remember myself and Harry Green were sitting chatting, and we're like, what time is it here? Because we're like, I don't know if my phone's changed over or not. I don't know. Just, and then, where your accommodation is, if you're in there and you're leaving from a different place, you're leaving from Tucson or Phoenix, and it just screws up everything. My brain just gets, I thought I was pretty smart for some things. I'm clearly not when it comes to time, because I always end up at the airport like 2 hours earlier than I should. Yeah. And the airport in Phoenix, I think it is not very exciting. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a great meeting. Everybody should go to it. It should be a lot of fun, given it's the 50th anniversary as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm kind of hypocritical saying this because I've never been to an IHS, but I definitely recommend everybody checking this one out, because it seems like it's going to be just an incredible few days. So
yeah, and there's some, they have an auction, which is always good. There's always some really cool stuff in the auction.
Okay.
But the last one I picked up, one of the original cover test printings for the Pythons of the World Volume 1, Dave and Tracy's, that was signed and numbered. Oh, cool. And I got that there, and a couple of books and some snake hooks and stuff. It's definitely, it's just a fun meeting altogether, because you got a good mix of herpetoculture and herpetology. Yeah. There's nobody judging each other, it's not, because sometimes, those that are immersed in herpetology kind of look down at those that are into herpetoculture, even though there's no reason they should be. Right. There's none of that. It's just a fun, just a really enjoyable meeting. Yeah. And you can talk to a lot of different people. There's a lot of downtime to do cool stuff. So.
Okay. Yeah. That always kind of sits in my mind when I'm either going to things like that or thinking about it, of like, I'm just some guy with snakes who like doesn't do anything scientific or too special. So I'm like, I almost sometimes feel like I'm like out of place in somewhere like that, but it's good to know that.
Definitely not for IHS. The talk I'm giving is that I've been asked to give is about the history of boa breeding. So that kind of eliminates the herpetology from it, and it's all herpetoculture. So I think you'll have a lot of fun. Okay. And given that you're so close, you should definitely do it.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Yeah, just about 3.5 hours.
Yeah, that's amazing. I didn't realize you were that close.
Yeah, maybe even 3 hours. So.
Oh, neat.
No, it's definitely something to do. So I'm looking forward to it. Well, yeah. So I got kind of a topic I'm interested in getting your perspective on here, because you've now been through it a couple of times. But the moving to Virginia, setting up an entire new kind of operation for your snakes. Going into it, so I guess maybe to preface this, at this point with moving around with your career, how many times you've had to set up your snake room or rooms from scratch in a new place?
In terms of home, so I moved from Northern Ireland to Raleigh. I moved into an apartment. Then a year and a half later, I bought a home, moved into that.
Okay.
So moved things out of a basically a closet. So when I moved from Northern Ireland to Raleigh, I sold off most of my collection back home, which is sad because I was only planning to be there for 3 years and then move back.
Okay.
But I sold off my emerald tree boas, my green Sanzinia, all of my Amazon tree boas. I had a bunch of ball pythons and I sold them. And what I brought with me, and a whole bunch of colubrids, just corn snakes, but I bred a lot of corn snakes.
Okay.
What I brought with me were, I think it was 18 boas.
Okay.
And I shipped them over to a friend in Delaware. They held onto them for a bit while I got kind of cages built, and then I went up and collected them. From there, I moved from the apartment into a home. So that, just the dynamics of even temperature was different.
Yeah.
And from there, I was there for nearly 7 years, and then moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Okay.
And I moved into a 100-year-old home. While it was completely renovated and refurbished, the basement was just this old creepy basement, some one of these Blair Witch kind of creepy basements,
Sure.
And I moved all of my animals into that there. But the great thing about it, and I didn't realize at the time, is that would drop in the summer. It would sit about 75, 74 degrees, which is perfectly stable. In the winter, it would drop down to about 60 to 65. Sure. Which was absolutely perfect for boa breeding, especially for working with Sonoran boas, which is kind of one of the groups that I work with a lot. So I never changed the thermostat throughout the year. I just let the room, because what would happen is the room would naturally cool down. So the cold end of the cage would get colder and colder. Yeah. And the snakes would just regulate based on those. So it worked out really well. And then moving from there to here, we got this house built, and it's ultra high tech in terms of temperature control. It's ultra stable. It's a walkout basement, but I've got 2 rooms in the basement that are against the submerged part of it. Okay. And so that's been an interesting thing to control temperature with, because it doesn't go down to 60 degrees or 65 degrees. It stays whatever we set the thermostat at the house, and it's normally sitting at about 72, maybe 74, because of the heating elements. But sure. There I've started having to play with thermostats and kind of putting them on day-night cycles and stuff. But I've produced animals every year that I've been here, and I've been here for 3.5 years, and I've got a bunch of gravid snakes now. So it's working out, and the good thing is there's actually one part of it that we haven't renovated yet, that we haven't built out yet, and I can get that to go down to about 55 degrees in the winter. Okay. And that's where I've got my green Sanzinia. So I cycled them this year. I haven't seen any breeding from them, but I wanted to get them into and start cycling them anyway to hopefully get them into the mood for next year. Okay.
All right. Very cool. So I guess then from one to the next, were there things that you picked up on of like, all right, this was something that I did in this room that didn't end up being ideal, that I want to correct when I set up the new room? What were some things you learned through the multiple moves where you're like, all right, for setting up an ideal snake room, these are things that are kind of musts?
Yeah, the thing that I totally regret not doing here is putting in a sink into the room. That would have been great. It would have taken up a lot of space, but it would have been nice having that. And I could have done it. I'm stupid for not doing it. But then again, I can step out of that room and I'm in the backyard and I've got a hose pipe, so I can clean stuff pretty easily. But it would have been nice to have that. Yeah. I think having, if I had been able to put the rooms on their own thermostatic control, it would have been nice. I didn't do that. I couldn't do that. I could fit mini splits and do that there, but it's just, I don't need to. Things are breeding, they're doing what they should be doing. And I've produced, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or 7 different species since I've been here, so between boas and pythons. And my son's breeding wazoo out of leopard geckos, so everything seems to be settling in pretty well there, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's still things I haven't finished up with the rooms yet. You know, I'd like to put in an epoxy floor.
Okay.
So I've got 2 rooms at the moment, a larger room and a smaller kind of, it's a mechanical room, but I keep baby racks and stuff in there. And then there's going to be a second storage room that I'm going to take over basically. And having an epoxy, so whenever I build that out, I'll move everything out. I'll put the epoxy floor in.
Gotcha.
Switch it around. So I think that's kind of nice. But the big thing is having enough outlets, you know. So that was a nice thing to be able to say, right, I want X number of outlets. I want them located in this position in the room, you know. And it's funny whenever you're building a home and they're like, well, what are you going to have in there? And it's like, you don't need to know. It's fine, you know. But it's nice having enough circuits where everything's kind of safe and you're not overloading things.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I bet being able to, you know, have the house built must have been just an absolute dream come true when it comes to that aspect of it.
Yeah, it was nice. It was horrendously expensive. I never thought living in Blacksburg would be so expensive, but it's kind of my dream home, so I'm really happy with it, you know. And
yeah, perfect.
All I need to do now is I need to finish up a tortoise run at the back of the house.
Okay.
Tortoise enclosure. So I'm hoping to do that maybe this summer, you know.
Okay.
Tortoises out there.
Very cool.
But, yeah, but it's great. I love it. It's, you know, you're in the, while I'm 5 minutes from the university, you know, it feels quite rural. You know, it's completely quiet at night. There's no light pollution. You know, it's beautiful. So
that's nice.
Yeah, it's a lot of positives. You know, I don't want to move again. I can tell you that.
Yeah, I could imagine. I mean, what you're describing seems like a pretty idyllic setup. So
yeah, it would have to be a real incredible offer to make me move. You know,
what a position that might be one of 1 to 3. Would that maybe get you with better pay?
Yeah, the pay would need to be bigger. The endowment that would run the lab would need to be bigger. Yeah, and it would have to be the right location. You know, so,
sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
And it would have to be East Coast, I think. So yeah. I've had my time in Oklahoma. It was good, but it's in the past.
Because your kids were still young enough to where moving schools wasn't like the end of the world being so young, right?
No. So my daughter's 12 next month. My son's 8. So they were 5 and 9, 5 and 8, 5 and 9. Okay. And it actually was surprisingly hard on them.
Yeah, I bet.
And I thought it would be harder on my daughter, but I think it was harder on my son ultimately.
Really?
Yeah, you know, and they're both very sociable little kids, and you know, the school that they're at's great and stuff. So I think they've settled in really well. Okay. But it was definitely not something you know, putting them through that was pretty tough. And then of course my wife had to give up her job that was phenomenal in Oklahoma, you know, find a new job here. So it was a massive upheaval. And selling a home, you know, our neighbors put their house on the market 4 weeks before ours, and they sold in like 4 hours for like 40 grand over asking. And then we put ours on the market, and literally that week the bottom fell out of the market, and ours sat in the market for like 3 months, and it was just stressful, you know, because the last thing I wanted was to have 2 mortgages, you know, until that house sold. But thankfully, within the last week of living there, it sold.
Okay.
And it sold for what we wanted, and that was major stress. You know, I don't think I've ever felt anxiety in my life.
Okay.
At that point in time. Nice. That 6-month period was the time where I felt a little bit of anxiety, but thankfully that dissipated once the move happened.
Yeah, I can.
And of course, you know, you've got the whole process of moving animals. So I was very lucky. You know, one of my best friends, Jonathan Harvey, lives in Knoxville, which is about 3.5 hours from here, and it's on the route going from Tulsa to here. I met Jonathan in Belfast 32 years ago.
Oh wow!
Because of keeping reptiles. He moved from Belfast to England, from England to Texas, where he worked at Rice, and then up to Knoxville, where he works at UT Knoxville.
Okay.
So the fact that and whenever he was traveling from Houston, he was going up to think St. Louis, and he didn't have reptiles at that point. Well, about a month later, he did have reptiles again, because I sent him home with some carpet pythons and a few other bits and pieces, and now he's got an incredible reptile room with just an amazing animals. So he was really nice. He and his wife Nina were incredible, because they allowed me to move my animals to their house. for 4 or 5 months or whatever it was that I was doing that travel back and forward, which meant selling our house was easier because you don't have a basement full of snakes, and things were somewhat stable. And it meant that during, once the move was all done, I could just go from here, rent a U-Haul truck and drive down and pick them all up and drive them back. So, that made the move a lot easier because they were so local, so close.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question about selling the house with the snakes, but that seems like just about best case scenario for that.
Yeah. I don't know how people do it, because some people
do they.
Yeah, I don't know. I think so. Yeah, I've heard people that have done it. I don't know how it would work. And that's the problem if you've got any number of animals. Being able to move them somewhere is difficult. It's I don't know how they do it. I don't want to do it again.
Yeah. I know for a fact I could not.
Yeah.
Would be impossible considering more than half of the square footage of the house is taken up by reptiles. So
I'm serious.
yes.
Pretty big reptiles as well. Yeah.
Yeah, that too. Yeah. Not just,
Yeah.
Garage full of scrub pythons. It's like, oh, okay, this is crazy.
Yeah.
So
wow. Yeah, no, we my wife and I, we have a rule: there's no reptiles outside of the reptile rooms, except for my son's some of my son's leopard geckos. They're up in his bedroom.
Okay.
But no, the rest of them are all in the basement, and nobody gets to go there. Basically, it's an invite only, and yeah.
Beautiful. Hey, if it works, it works.
It does.
So yeah, what's the collection looking like these days? What is it consisting of?
So I think I've got about 22 species.
Okay.
So so we've got a decent group of emerald tree boas. I've got a group of Amazon tree boas. So that's a mix of so with the emeralds are the anaconda phase and the regular kind of wild type barred pattern. With Amazons, I've got leopards, tiger head leopards, and some bicolors. Annulated tree boas, Granada bank tree boas, green Sanzinia. Got the emerald Amazon hybrids, Trinidad tree boas. So I sold off my Venezuelan and my Costa Rican Ruschenbergeri just to focus on the Trinidads because I've got a bunch of them for space. And then I've got Brazilian rainbow boas, T negative, T positive albinos, and then wild type. I got into Colombian rainbow boas because I always liked the T positive.
Okay.
Years ago, Brian Sharp used to be on the board of US ARC and the very first iteration. And I've been on the board, I think since the start. Myself and Jeff Ronnie are the longest serving board members.
Okay.
But at that point, he had the T positive Colombian rainbow boa. And I think they were like 25 grand or something like that at that point. But I saw one at Tinley and I was amazed. And I thought one day it'd be nice to have that. Last year, 2 years ago, a friend posted some on MORPHMARKET. And I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. And I hit him up and said they were neat and told him why I liked them. He's like, well, Warren, how about you buy them? Here's the price. And he gave me a killer deal. And I did. And I had a couple of beers. And the next morning, I also had T negative albinos and anarthristics, patternless and leucistics. So I end up with a pretty decent group of Colombian rainbow boas. What else have I got? Then I've got the boa imperator, and it's mainly Central American, mainly Costa Rican,
gotcha,
Nicaraguan.
Okay,
I've got some Colombians, but they're done with my friend Jonathan, so we got like super fires and labyrinths and stuff like that there. And then I've got the whole kind of Sonoran boa group. So the anarthristics, the leopards, and the hypos. I've been working with those for nearly 30 years.
Wow.
I've got some other cool ones. We got crawl keys, and West Snake Key boas. So they're really rare, and I think all gravid, which is good.
Beautiful.
What else do I have? Do I have any other boas?
Do you have Hog Islands still?
Oh yeah, I've got Hog Islands. Yeah, okay. I've got a bunch of Hog Islands as well. How did I forget those? Yeah, I've got a bunch of Hog Islands. They're nice.
I love Hog Islands.
Yeah, they're beautiful. Yeah, I like those a lot. And then for pythons, we've got. I think I'm missing another boa, but yeah, for pythons we got a bunch of the Antaresia, so the children's and the spotteds. So the T positives and the patternless and the wild type children's, and then the granite, striped and Cape York spotters. They're kind of cool. I've got pygmy bandids, and I've got, is that all the Antaresia? I think that's the Antaresia. Darwin carpets, the albinos and the wild types, womas, and we've got Timor pythons.
Okay.
Yeah, that's that's all we need to say. And I think I've got other pythons. I've got Dunn's pythons.
Yes.
I've got 2 parthenogenetic ball pythons.
Okay.
And then I've got like some western hognose snakes that are my daughters, some house snakes that were given to me as a gift, Portal Road speckled kings that were given to me as a gift, and I'm trying to think, is there anything else there? I think that's it. I think that's everything. I'm sure I'm missing something. I'm trying to kind of visually go around the room, but I'm sure I'm missing something. But and then my son's got a whole bunch of leopard geckos, and then we got redfoot tortoises as well.
Okay, beautiful.
Yeah, so it's enough to play with. It's enough to keep me busy.
Sure, sounds like it. This is Ryan's back when you're talking about your reptile room, saying he's awaiting his invite. So
Ryan can come anytime. He's also, from what I see, a very good handyman. So maybe he could help me build out the rest of the basement, which would be great. He's also to blame for the Timor pythons because I told him I loved them. And a week later, 2 of them appeared in a FedEx truck, and they're pretty incredible animals. They like to defecate and urinate, and my ones come out of the enclosures with their mouths open, every time. So it's definitely interesting to maintain those. But I love them. They're a species that I've loved since I got into reptiles. They were on the cover of one of the TFH, I think it was like Breeding Boas and Pythons or something, one of those books, and they were on the front cover. And I've loved them ever since. So to have them is really cool. But they're a handful. Yeah. Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah. I've had my Timor days, and I don't know if I would go back to it.
Yeah, I'm glad I've got them. I'd love to breed them. Like, it was years ago, maybe 18 years ago. I was at Daytona. 17 years ago, I was at Daytona for a US ARC board meeting, and Dave Barker and I had too many beers one night, and then he was trying to give me 9 adult Timor pythons. I was like, dude, that's not going to happen.
Oh my God! I'll give you my kidney first. I don't know about that.
No, I would have been dead. I can imagine. Yeah, that would have been crazy.
Oh my gosh. Got another chat comment here from Steve, or a question. What is your favorite boa species you work with? Might be kind of loaded.
That's a difficult one.
Yeah.
It's a real difficult one. Like the boas that really got me into it were the Sonora Desert boas.
Okay.
And I was part of a group that reclassified those to Boa Sigma. I love those. I've always loved those. Emeralds hold a real soft spot for. Green Sanzinia, I love. But Amazon tree boas, I had a huge collection of Amazon tree boas back in Ireland. I've bred them 20-something times, and I love those as well. So it's difficult, every time you get a new litter of something, that instantly becomes your favorite. Like the rainbow boas are great because anytime the Brazilian rainbow boas are born, all the babies take defrost food immediately once they shed. They're so easy to maintain. They sell well, and it's really difficult. But I think between the Sonorans and the emeralds are 2 that kind of really get me, but then the Trinidad tree boas, they're such a rare animal. Nobody's got them outside myself and Jeff Murray and one other person that's involved in the project with us. So that's, kind of a dream animal to work with as well. But they're kind of like the scrub python of the Corrales world. They're big, they're aggressive, they're awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I guess to kind of, take it back a little bit further, what's the fascination with boas? I mean, there's a million things you can say, but of all the reptiles in the world, what do you think really grabbed you about boas, just as a family, so to speak?
That's a good question. I don't really know what it was. When I got into them, it was with my friend Jonathan, and we had a friend in the UK who was a locality boa guy called Clive Osborne. Sadly, he's no longer with us. but he had, he had boa nebulosa and boa orpheus and all these really ultra rare animals. But he brought in 6 sonora boas from Germany.
Okay.
And we were going over to visit to get some stuff, and he said they're small, they're really cool, they're like 4.5 feet as adult, and that really appealed to me because I didn't really have the space for a larger Colombian boa.
Sure.
And whenever I saw them, I thought these are great. So Jonathan and I got the group, and I kept a pair and bred them, and in that first litter there was an anearthristic. There was actually 2 anearthristics. There was one stillborn and one live.
Wow.
And that was just amazing. I bred them for like 5 years in a row, and produced anearthristics every year. And I traded those for other snakes, for other boas, and built up a pretty decent boa collection as a result of it.
Okay.
But I think they're just a pretty cool package. I like the smaller boas, so they're easily manageable and stuff. But there's everything you want from it. There's locality stuff that you can get into. Like getting the Coral Keys and the West Snake Key boas has been great, because the Coral Keys are certainly a lot more available, but West Snake Keys are probably one of the rarest locality boas on the planet.
Okay.
And we've got a really nice group of those. Very different than the albino this or that I keep. So I think part of it's you get the fascination with the variety of the genetics, right? Because I got into all that because of genetics, really, and being able to cross X with Y and get whatever. But then the locality stuff is something I find really interesting as well, and being able to have for some of it, being able to have locality pure morphs, I thought was a nice little kind of slant to that as well.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's I can't imagine not having boa sigma in my house. I haven't. There hasn't been a time in the last 32 years that I haven't had reptiles. In the last 30 years that I haven't had boas.
Wow.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're cool.
They really are.
Yeah, fun to breed, easy to keep, very robust.
Okay. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, the locality boa lane is one that I've always known that I could. It's a rabbit hole I know I could fall down very quickly. Yeah. Morphs are cool, and I have nothing against the morphs, but just the wild type variety within boa constrictors is just it's unmatched by most groups of snakes on the planet.
Yeah, and the island stuff is particularly cool for me, and the West Snake Key and the Coral Keys are actually F1s from the wild caught animals. My friend Scott Boback collected those animals originally in like 2002. So my animals, he gave to me a whole bunch of them because they couldn't maintain them anymore, the number that they had. Okay. So knowing exactly where they came from, when they came in, the original import paperwork and so on, has been really, really cool with that there. So, the rare Coral Keys are certainly a lot more abundant. They're still not common, but to have, that there's 100% locality pure has been neat. And the West Snake Key being so rare, it'll be nice to try and propagate those and get them into keepers' hands.
Absolutely.
Because Vin had them, but obviously he lost his in the fire. So I'll be gifting Vin some of those whenever we have some babies as well, to try and help them build up some stuff.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah, one of my formative reptile memories was it had to have been somewhere around 2010, but there was the feature article in Reptiles magazine for one of the months was Hog Island boas.
Yeah, I think I've got that somewhere. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I mean the pages were falling apart on that magazine by the time I was done with it. I just, I like everybody else who is of my age range, YouTube was so accessible to anybody who was new into reptiles that, the ball python craze was pretty much the first thing you got, any sort of exposure to. So then seeing that article about the Hog Island boas, and, they're not describing them as being a smaller species, and then just how beautiful they were. I loved all the black speckling. They really grabbed my attention, and I'm not sure why still to this day I've never worked with Hog Island boas, but they always have a super soft spot.
Yeah, I thought I had a grab a female this year. She's huge, you know, this female is, you know, she's 6 feet, you know, and probably kind of that.
Okay.
You know, she's a big snake, but she's old, and she gets fed 7 times a year on a larger jumbo rat. I thought she was gravid. She was kind of fooling me, but I've got younger ones that are raising up that hopefully will breed next year. And you know, I'm not one of these people that line breeds. So given that we have multiple different lines of hog islands in captivity, you know, I'm much more of I'm going to breed a Sears line to a Shuet line to a, you know, X, Y, or Z line, you know, to try and produce more genetically diverse animals. And we're working on a project where we're hoping to be able to bring in some fresh animals from the wild.
Wow.
Hopefully 10 gravid females, because they're super abundant on the islands.
Yeah. Okay.
So, you know, the thing that keeps them small on the islands is food restrictions.
Sure.
Right? So they don't have the diet to be able to get them up to the, you know, the size that we see them in captivity. They're certainly not the dwarf, you know, that they were sold as, you know, 20 years ago.
Okay.
They can certainly get bigger, but that you can maintain them smaller and they can reproduce very small. You know, you've seen the pictures of Vin with his hand, you know, beside gravid females. And I've certainly had animals like that as well. But, you know, I find that, you know, because snakes have indeterminate growth, you know, once they have that first litter and you boost them a little bit of food afterwards, I find they start putting on length and then they fill out.
Yeah.
So they're certainly not, they're big. My adult hog islands, my old adult hog islands are much bigger than my adult Sonoran boas, for example.
Gotcha.
Yeah, a lot bigger.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then let me ask you this, you know, obviously with a lot of reptiles that are for many of these smaller islands, especially, you know, in, you know, Central America, seems like a lot of species of reptiles on these islands are in decline for one reason or another. These island boas, what do you you know, associate with their success? Is it protection? Or
I think that's a lot of it. You know, so most of those keys are reserves, national reserves, so you can't collect from them.
Okay.
You know, like we talked, you know, when I was with Scott Boback a couple of months ago, you know, he showed me the last surviving Lagoon Key boa. It's one of these island boas, but you know, he'd lost the males over time, and you know, we were kind of talking about what to do with it. But without having a male, there's nothing we could do. And we thought, well, maybe we could look into collecting some more from the islands. But Honduras has said, you know, and Central America basically said, nope, you know, nothing's coming off those islands, you know, and, which is really sad. But you know, there's small islands, small populations, and I don't think there's any chance. So there were some fresh hog islands came in about 8 or 9 years ago. There were two bags. There were 2 bags that were smuggled, 2 bags of boas that were smuggled off the island.
Fun.
One bag was found in the boat, and they were brought to America, and they were seized there, but they were brought to the US, or seized in the US. The other bag disappeared, so it was probably just dumped overboard. But there is some fresh bloodline hog island boas here, but again, that's a national reserve, so you can't go and collect from there unless you get, you know, the right paperwork, which would be scientific paperwork, which is what we're looking for. The same way that we brought in the Trinidad tree boas was under scientific license, basically. So I think, you know, a lot of them are protected because of just the protection that those islands afford them. And that's also cool. You know, for some of those islands, there's not a lot of habitation on them in terms of people.
Sure.
So, you know, getting to it and so on could be pretty inhospitable. And yeah. And ultimately, what's the demand? How many people are going to spend money to make that kind of thing worthwhile? You know, it's not as if it's a brightly colored, really unusual thing. It's a boa constrictor.
Yeah.
So I think that somewhat affords them some protection as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess just alone not having, you know, human infrastructure being built on those islands has just got to be the most massive part.
It's interesting because it can go 2 ways with those, right? Because whenever you got humans living on the islands, you get trash, and with trash you get rats and so on.
Sure.
So, for example, we worked on a project 17 or 18 years ago on invasive boas on Cozumel, We did a lot of genetic work, and we traced back to when those animals were introduced onto the island. It was during a filming of a movie, and they released them in 2 places, you know, to have them in the background on trees. And
Oh my
and
God.
the animal handler just decided he was just going to leave them and not bring them back to the mainland. So these
crazy.
2 lines basically then populated, but they populated around human habitation because of all the rats, and the populations exploded, and that then caused them to spread out into the forest, where they basically they ate every bird species that was present. So it's kind of weird because the forests are now kind of silent in Cozumel. You lose a lot of the biodiversity. You know, so, and the weird thing with that is, because boas are protected, they're a CITES animal. They can't go in and kill them. They can't go and remove them and sell them. They can't. So there's this issue with how they then control these snakes.
Even though they're an invasive.
Yeah.
Wow.
So on one hand, they're an invasive. On the other hand, they're a protected species.
That's so backwards.
So it's a very difficult one to kind of regulate. But you know, I think what that means for us is that with things like these island boas, you know, it's down to us to kind of preserve them. So whenever I see people breeding a hog island to, you know, a Colombian boa or whatever, that kind of really annoys me inside, because especially if it's a female hog island, because I'm like, well, you know, you're losing opportunity to maintain lines or maintain a species or a locality in captivity. I see the same thing. You know, people think that inbreeding doesn't have a negative effect in these snakes, but it ultimately will have a negative effect. We might not be seeing the effect today, but in 4 or 5 generations time, the lines can start collapsing. So I think they need to maintain these diverse lines and be outcrossing to kind of maintain diversity. We can't do it with some things. So there was so limited numbers of West Snake Key, Lagoon Key, Crawl Key, you know, animals, Cocker Key brought in. Tarahumaras were started from, I think, 1 pair.
Wow.
You know, but that was only 20 years ago or so. So we're only 5 generations into that. We're probably going to see genetic effects happening in the next 4 or 5 generations from those. Same thing with pythons, you know, like the rough scale pythons and so on. We're just too new into that part of the hobby to see the negative effects.
Sure.
But it's still up. You know, we should try our best to preserve localities where we can.
Absolutely, I fully agree.
A lot of people interested in it now. Years ago, there weren't. Like I would produce super hypo Sonoran boas, which look like hog islands from the line that I had, and I literally couldn't give them away. I would wholesale them for $35 a piece.
Wow. And
these are animals that now would probably go for $600 or $700. It's amazing, you know. But so thankfully, there's a lot more people interested in those kind of locality pure animals.
Yeah, definitely. That's an advancement of the hobby. I feel like all around. That's really, you know, kind of lifts your spirits up a little bit. Just and it's I feel like it's present in almost every facet of the hobby now. Is real focus on locality type or subspecies or whatever it may be, of making sure that we're keeping the animals representative of what they actually are.
Yeah. So one of the other problems that we do in captivity with these locality animals, once you're 2 or 3 generations in, the animals don't necessarily look like what the locality animals look like, because what we're doing is we're selecting the best animal.
Yeah.
Or that one's got a cool stripe on its tail, or that one's got a cool pattern or whatever. And we're selectively breeding those. But what we should be doing is just breeding them randomly to each other. Yeah. Right. To maintain that diversity and that more wild look. So, you know, we're our own worst enemy when it comes to some of those things.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm, you know, I definitely am fully guilty of that as the rest of us are, of, you know, trying to breed the nice. And I give credit to people who take the opposite approach. Like, you know, Chris Rice is doing that very specifically with his emeralds, of keeping some more wild looking babies that he's produced to maintain a wild looking line, you know, just a population of them. And I'm like, man, I got to give you credit, because I don't think I would do that.
Yeah, you know, I've certainly become more cognizant of it in the last couple of years, but I was the same. You know, I was very selective about what I would hold back, and, you know, being a geneticist, I was really interested in, well, look at that cool pattern, is that heritable, you know, and trying to propagate these things. So I've certainly become more cognizant of it, and, you know, with the Crawl Keys and the West Snake Key snakes, you know, that's going to be projects that are preserving that look, because I know what that look is, because I've got, you know, animals that are F1 from those. Excuse me. Yeah, it's just one of those aspects of the hobby, again, that we need to be a bit more careful with.
Yes, no doubt about it.
Have lines, have your cool, apparent animals and so on, but always try and maintain something that's representative of what we might not be able to get again, because once they're gone, they're gone. We're not going back to collect a lot of these things.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. Kind of on that note a little bit, that's not the comment I was going for. Here we go. Your favorite Hog Island boa line and why?
Yeah, I don't really have a favorite line. I've got 4 different lines here. They're all different in their own way. I like, and I've really liked the offspring that I've produced from crossing them. I'm somewhat fond of the Shuett line because they were founded by my buddy Gordon Shuett and his brother. But I don't really have I like them all. I like the speckled ones. I like the kind of the non-speckled. I've got a patternless line. They're well, yes, it's essentially no dorsal pattern. So they're pretty cool. I just like Hog Islands. I think they're beautiful. And I mentioned this guy Clive Osborne earlier. Whenever I was first at his place, he had wild caught Hog Island boas. So that was back from 20 years ago. No, over 20 years, because I've lived in the US 20 years. That's 25, nearly 30 years ago. And at night they turned milk white and pink. They were just incredible.
Wow.
And thankfully, a bunch of them that I've got really changed dramatically at night, where they're really, pink and oranges and stuff. But yeah, I like all Hog Islands. If they're pure, I really like them. I've never been a fan of the crosses, into the hypoboas and stuff like that. There, I just like a good. I think a Hog Island is such a unique animal that it deserves its own kind of place. Yeah, I like them all.
The hypo cross never made any sense to me, even as like a 9-year-old. I'm like, wait, the best part about them is the speckling.
Yeah, right.
So you take away the speckling.
Yeah.
What's the point?
Yeah, you change it entirely. There was a guy that had some of the the hypo hogs, whatever, the sunsets, and they were vibrant, they were incredible. But I just didn't see the point in it, really, because I've also seen people that have done those crosses and then bred those animals back to each other and produced kind of wild type looking Hog Islands that once they go off into the pet trade, they could get labeled as Hog Islands. And obviously Vin kind of preaches about that a lot, and I totally agree with him. I think once it creates too much problems. I'm lucky in that, being a geneticist and having worked with wild Hog Island boas in terms of genomics, we can do a lot of sequencing to determine purity. But I also don't intend to add any more Hog Islands to my group. I've got what I want.
Okay.
There is a T positive line, and that's one that I would add, but it's very subtle, and it's pure, but it's a very subtle line, and I would consider getting that, but I'm in no rush.
Was that animal wild collected, like the founder of the line, or did it pop up in captivity?
It popped up in captivity, but it's ultra subtle. So there could be certainly more of them, and you wouldn't, unless you really know what you're looking for, you wouldn't, they would be easily missed.
Okay.
Yeah, but they're pretty cool.
Okay. We've got an interesting comment here. So wouldn't you want to restrict diversity in insular localities to not introduce potential negative mutations into existing stable homozygous chains? Perfect to ask this question, I would say.
So, there's 2 ways we can look at it. So inbreeding can sometimes be beneficial because it can eliminate kind of deleterious or negative mutations. I can fix these blocks of these gene blocks, basically, that are beneficial. But over time, mutations arise. So for every gigabase of DNA, 20 to 40 mutations arise each generation. So you're increasing, mutations will arise as a result of that. Genetic diversity in general is considered beneficial because it allows animals to adapt to alternating climates and alternating kind of environments and so on. So what I wouldn't want to do is outbreed one. So for example, with that lagoon key snake, an option would have been, well, why don't we breed an animal from the closest island to it, to that animal, to try and produce something to preserve. But then you're never going back to a lagoon key snake. You're never returning to that there. But where we have genetic diversity within captive collections from genetically diverse animals from the wild, I believe they should be crossed to each other. I don't believe we should be selecting lines that are then continually inbred and inbred and inbred. And we're all we're all kind of guilty of that. Whenever I've bought animals, I bought a pair of babies and I've bred those together and so on, but they're babies from the same litter or the same clutch. But I certainly try to outbreed whenever I can, or to add diversity whenever I can.
Okay.
But it's a good comment. It's if you're insular localities, you got to remember, but that because animals are insular doesn't mean that they're genetically depauperate, doesn't mean that they're inbred. They could be genetically diverse, but whenever you take two animals from it, then you're then creating an inbred line. And we're going to be testing that. So with the island boas that we've got, we've just started sequencing their genomes to start looking at inbreeding effects. But yeah, that's a good question.
Very cool. Okay, interesting. We got another question here from Lisa again. So how different are regular Sonorans from the Tarahumara locality? She says her Sonorans are very small.
Yeah, they're Tarahumaras tend to be smaller, darker.
I thought, okay.
The ones that I had were super feisty. I sold my Tarahumaras maybe 12 or 15 years ago because I couldn't sell the babies. I couldn't even give them away. People weren't interested in them. At that point, locality boas were not very common, never very interesting to people. But they were just dark little boas. I much prefer Sonorans because the Sonorans are slightly bigger, and I think the pattern's more interesting in them, and the variety's more interesting in them. But Tarahumaras are great. They're just not one. They're one that I've had and I've bred many times, and just I've had that phase in my life.
Gotcha.
Like the other ones to think about are like the Tamaulipas island boas, the Sky Island boas. They're really cool, and they're smaller still. And I need to check which ones are Sigma and which ones are Imperator. because on we don't really know well where that split occurs, but on the Pacific side is where you get Sigma, and on the Gulf of Mexico you've got Imperator right down into Central America and so on. But where that break happens, we're not really sure. We don't have the sampling sufficiently in those kind of more inland remote areas.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are the Tamaulipas boas the most northern ranging boas?
I think so. Yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah. Sonoran and Tamaulipas, I think both are equally kind of north in that range.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And you can see that because of how dark they are as well.
Yeah.
And every time I breed Sonoran boas, I want to get those females down into the high 60s, very, very low 70s for 3 months or 4 months. I find that if I keep them too warm, they like a Nicaraguan boa, they don't breed well.
Okay.
So they're definitely darker boas that like it cooler.
So then is there kind of like a geographic cutoff where you treat the breeding differently, where, all right, at a certain point south of going east, these boas don't need to get quite so cold for so long? Like, is there a geographic cutoff where you're like, all right, these are my warmer breeders, these are my colder breeders?
Yeah. So for me, my Sonorans are the only ones that I really deal with.
Oh, okay, that's it.
Everything else, like I will say that for my room in Oklahoma, for example, I didn't do anything. So all of the boas got the opportunity to drop down into the high 60s, mid to high 60s at night. They still had a hot spot that they could go to, but they rarely did. Here, I try to get them down to 70 or 72. It's more difficult, but they all kind of go to the cooler end. It doesn't hurt the more Central American. It doesn't hurt the Nicaraguans and the Costa Ricans to get a little bit cooler because they've always got access to that hot spot during the day, so it offsets that there. Doing this cooling the Sanzinia this year was just kind of crazy. I've never had a snake that I've subjected to 55 degrees, and its hot spot during the day, the hottest it would get is like 63 degrees, and that was like that for 3 months. That was. Especially considering the value of green Sanzinia now, that kind of scared me a little bit. But those things were so amazing that at night they were sitting at 55 degrees and they would sit in the hunting position looking for food. And I've got friends that said that they feed them during that cooling when they get down that low. They'll give them small meals, but But everything else, I maintain everything pretty much in my room very, very similar. So the boas, I try to all get down to 70 or 72 now.
Okay.
The rainbow boas I keep cooler anyway, but I want to give them a range where they can thermoregulate. So if they want to go on the heat, they can. If they want to get cold, they can.
Okay.
Yeah. But you're right. If you think about the range of boas, it's got one of the most extensive latitudinal ranges of any snake complex. Essentially, you've got everything from Argentina all the way up to Sonora, slightly above it, and everything in between. So that's a remarkable kind of variation in nighttime temperatures and daytime temperatures and humidity and so on.
I've had a similar kind of thought processes about my my Spilotes, considering the ranges they're not quite identical, but they're probably 90% similar ranges overall. And just these animals that are, at least the way that we can visually kind of measure, pretty similar. Obviously, for someone like you who's looking at it, the genetic sequencing and all that stuff, you're going to be able to see differences. But what does that mean for us as keepers if we're keeping these snakes that seem very similar, but you can get them as far north as Tamaulipas, as far south as southern Brazil, Argentina, etc.
I think it's going to have a major effect if you're getting wild caught or close to wild caught, right? Which are especially adult animals which are used to that kind of temperature cycling in the wild. I think when it comes into captivity, it changes a little bit, but some animals still need to get cold. So, people don't tend to successfully breed green Sanzinia unless they get them cold.
Yeah,
and there are multiple generations in captivity. But I think that having the wild caughts will be a lot more sensitive to it. I just saw a comment from Lisa asking if my emeralds and my Amazons get cold. They get about a 4 or 5 degree temperature drop at night, but that's it.
Not much.
And so they've got a hot spot where they can bask at 90 degrees, and they've got a cool end that's in the kind of high 70s normally.
Okay.
So at nighttime that'll drop down a little bit cooler, but I find them, they'll move back and forth between them. They're very, very active animals.
Gotcha.
They'll move back between the heat and the cold at any time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So then, is that a phenomenon you're seeing with the boas, where once you get kind of multiple generations in, or even a single generation, the temperature fluctuations don't seem to dictate their breeding behavior quite so much?
Yeah, not necessarily with my own stuff, because they just get all subjected to whatever the coolest temperature is needed for most of the animals in the room.
Sure.
But you look at ball pythons now, a lot of people just breed them and don't temperature cycle them. There's lots of triggers to get animals to breed. Food cycling is a big one. Light cycling you can use. Humidity you can use. Temperature you can use. You can use a combination of them. You can use all of them and get success. It's just finding out which one is the trigger for your animals is the thing. And I think one of the problems is that if it doesn't work one year for somebody, then they try a different method. And if that doesn't work, they try a different method instead of sticking with a method and letting the animals cycle into that. I think that can be a real problem if people are just too kind of haphazard in what they change. Sure. But I think it would be interesting I think we have the opportunity to do some cool things with these breedings that we do. You've seen it in every litter. Some of the babies are incredible and feed straight off the bat. Some of them are an absolute nightmare. I think it'd be really neat to start crossing those that feed well, into one line, and those that are poor feeders, to see if there's a heritability to feeding behavior. There's some interesting things that could be done, to try and get these unusual animals to eat. But we're losing that option. I think the opportunity of crossing the calmest animals and then taking those that are the most aggressive, or feisty, that would be interesting as well, to see there's heritability to those behaviors, because we know that those behaviors are heritable in other species. So I think there's lots of cool things that we can do with them, and temperature for breeding is another interesting one as well. If you subject animals to cycling, and those that you don't, can you still produce from those that don't? And if you can, at what generation does that really kick in?
Yeah. It's interesting you say that. I've seen a very strong correlation with my scrubs of the attitude of the parents dictating attitude of the babies.
Oh, that's interesting.
One well-mannered parent means almost an entirely chill clutch.
Oh, really?
Two 100%.
Oh, that's neat.
Neither uphill battle every time so far. It's been very interesting to kind of figure that out, but it's pretty shocking with that. But I also have had the same thought of with the feeding, trying to select for the best feeding offspring. I'd have to imagine that these things would work. So
yeah, I would. Look, we've seen it with hognose snakes, right? The fact that you can hatch out a Western hognose snake, and hognose snakes were the first species that I ever bred.
Oh, really? Okay.
And the 2 clutches of 12 and 23 hatched. One of them was deformed, so almost 100% hatch rate, which was great. Within an hour, they shed their skin and they're ready to eat, and they all fed on defrost pink mice. And this is 30 years ago, so they were not that far from the wild at that point. But now, it's just with so far from wild animals, they've totally been selected for great feeding behaviors and so on.
Sure.
But one of the problems with us as breeders is we there's always a time where we produce that really unusual animal, and it's a real pain in the ass to feed, and we do everything we can to get it going.
Yeah.
I don't think we're doing ourselves any favors with that there, It's and I'm guilty of that as well. I got a snake downstairs, which is just unreal, but it was one of the real pain in the ass when it was born. It took a year before it would feed.
I have one about 6 feet away from me that didn't take quite a year, but yeah, this animal was not born perfect by any means, but it's like an axanthic bar neck. I'm like, wow. I gotta see this through. So.
I had a litter of anaconda face emeralds. I think it was last year, and one of the babies just did not want to feed. Just never showed interest in food, and I've been assist feeding that since about 4 months of age, and I will keep assist feeding that until the thing freaking eats on its own, because it's, anaconda face emeralds are hard enough to come by as it is. So that one I go to every week and I assist feed it, and it does its stuff and it doesn't resist. And then so hopefully, once it puts a little bit more size on, I'll starve it for a bit and try it on live or something like that there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we all do it, but in the wild, they're the ones that disappear first.
Most certainly.
Yeah.
Got a comment here, their question that I want to clear up, but then also brings up a question for me. So the Jamaican boas and the Trinidad boas, you're looking at 2 different genuses. You got the Kylobothris for the Jamaican boas, then Corallus, but then and Jamaican boas are beautiful snakes. Yeah. But is there any population overlap of Kylobothris and Corallus?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so either, but
I don't believe so. The Corallus kind of, where are they? The islands, you got them on like Grenada, St. Vincent, that kind of thing. Yeah, I'm not aware of any overlap.
Okay.
I'm not aware of any overlap.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Kylobothris. They're a group that I've never worked with.
Me either.
Mainly because the stories that people tell me about, their musking and the smell and the, and so I've tried to avoid that. I've got my one pair of snakes that likes to do that in my Timors. But I think Jamaicans are beautiful. I think they're great looking animals, and I'd love to have a pair, but I don't think it's ever going to happen.
Yeah, I always shit on them, and I guess I'm going to do it again right now. But Dominican red mountain boas have I have beef with them. They're the only ones that I've worked with, and it was at my old job back when I was in high school. And the worst bite still to this day I've ever taken was from like a 4-foot Dominican red mountain boa.
Oh, really?
It was brutal. It was a feeding response bite without food around, like kind of like a Woma bite.
Yeah.
And it got me on my thumb and wrapped, but it hit a nerve somehow that I've never felt pain like that another time in my life.
Right.
And like my body was just screaming at me, like, get it off, get it off, get it off. It hurt so badly. Oh my gosh, that bite was terrible.
I wouldn't fancy that. Yeah. I think I've been bitten once by a Corallus. It was a really big, kind of nearly 7-foot Amazon. I would eat medium rats, and it was weird. She kind of crawled up my arm and just very slowly opened her mouth and just kind of closed, and I felt my skin just puncturing at each tooth going in, kind of slowly, kind of the tooth kind of depressed and then pop as it went in. And that wasn't pleasant. And I definitely wouldn't want to be bitten by the Trinidads. So to kind of go back to that question, the Trinidads are Corallus ruschenbergeri, which are one of the evolutionarily older lineages of the Corallus group. Big snakes. You know, they're 7 foot, 7.5 foot, kind of eat large rats, you know, as adults. And unlike Amazons, which are kind of floppy, you know, like it takes a lot of work to be bitten by an Amazon in a strike, because they're kind of like, they go out and they kind of fall over and they're just useless. And even the Costa Rican ruschenbergeri were like that, because the Corallus ruschenbergeri are two kind of slightly different lineages. But the Venezuelan and the Trinidads, man, they see you and they could be right on point for nailing you. They don't have the floppiness of an Amazon, and they got power and they got speed, and so they're ones that I work with very carefully. Yeah, but they're cool snakes, and they're very different than the Venezuelan ruschenbergeri in terms of color, and you know they tend to be more patternless, gold. Yellow. You know, if people want to see them, they can go onto my Instagram page and scroll down a handful of years. I haven't posted any pictures recently, but they're really beautiful animals.
Yeah.
Hopefully in a few years' time, we'll be able to start selling those to the general public.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I want to get into that. Before that, I'm 20 minutes late on hitting these commercials we got to do real quick.
Oh, yes.
Let's jump to commercials, hit a few of these real quick, and we will come back with some ruschenbergeri talk.
Sorry for the interruption, folks, but a quick word from our sponsors. Shout out to tonight's sponsor, brought to you by ZooMed.
ZooMed is proud to be supporting the Trap Talk Reptile Network. At ZooMed, reptiles are our passion. For over 48 years, we've been creating premium foods, supplies, and habitats for reptiles and other exotic animals. We're a company made up of hobbyists that test our products on the hundreds of animals that we care for here every single day. Whether you're an established breeder or a first-time hobbyist picking up your first ball python, ZooMed has you covered with everything you need to keep your animals happy and healthy.
I'm excited to talk about this new product with ZooMed called the Slither Sense. It is a remote temperature and humidifying monitoring system, which we all know how important temperature and humidity is to your reptile. And for you to have remote access to your temperature and your humidity in your reptile room could really, really be a game changer for the longevity of you keeping reptiles. So guys, make sure you check out that product. Find the link in the description below. Click on it right now. Give me your feedback in the comments below. Let me know how you're liking a brand new ZooMed product. Shout out to tonight's sponsor, Workshop Reptilium. Josh Hansen is doing things different over in his facility. He has one of the most diverse, beautiful reptile collections currently in the reptile hobby today, but he is doing things differently when it comes to enclosures, thinking outside the box, giving these reptiles bigger enclosures. I feel like it's something this hobby needs. So a lot of exciting stuff to come from Workshop Reptilium. I'm going to be flying up to his place to give you guys a deeper look into his facility, and I'm also excited to have an episode with Josh so he can explain himself where his goals are headed when it comes to keeping. Thank you so much, Josh Hansen over at Workshop Reptilium. Make sure you head over to Instagram, make sure you head over to Facebook. Also, make sure you subscribe to him on YouTube. You can find all the links in the description below. Again, thank you so much, Josh, over at Workshop Reptilium. Shout out to tonight's sponsor, and that's the one and only Morph Market and Morph Market Shipping. One of the biggest exciting things about the reptile hobby over the past couple years is Morph Market Shipping taking everything to the next level. Anything as far as reptile purchasing or selling needs can all be done on Morph Market's website. So I highly suggest you go check it out, especially if you're in the market of purchasing your first, second, or third, or fourth reptile. You can find a bunch of legitimate breeders on Morph Market's platforms. They stand very tall on representing the best breeders we have in the hobby. So don't look anywhere else when it comes to looking for your new reptile. Not to mention, if you're looking for aquatics or your next plant, Morph Market's a spot for you as well. Make sure you head over to morphmarket.com. And the best thing about Morph Market's platform, you could ship directly from their website with Morph Market Shipping. Morph Market Shipping has saved this hobby millions of dollars as a whole. I myself saved thousands with Morph Market Shipping last year due to their insanely cheap rates. So definitely go take advantage of these rates on top of the amazing customer service that comes along with Morph Market Shipping. Shout out to Darian and Zach, and shout out to the entire Morph Market team. So proud to be a part of this team. Thank you so much for Morph Market Shipping and Morph Market, and so excited to announce new Morph Market features that are going to be hitting the reptile hobby real soon, like live sales on Morph Market. Thank you so much, Morph Market and Morph Market Shipping.
Alrighty, everybody, we are back. So I did pull up your Instagram during the interim over here, and we got little baby Trinidad tree boa right there.
Yeah, so that was kind of an unusual one because that was one of our first breedings, and the color just started fading. So normally they're vibrant yellow gold, but that one just it gets whiter and whiter.
Wow.
As it continues. Yeah, it's really unusual.
Interesting.
And it's not as if it's not eating or anything. I think it's feeding in that there picture. It's a phenomenal eater. It does really well. So we'll see how it goes. Again, that's I'm doing, not preaching what I teaching what I preach, but what is I'm saying? Yeah, I'm not helping myself because I've got that animal and I want to breed it at some point, and it's not representative.
Yeah.
What Trinidad animals are, but it's a cool snake, and they're so rare that you just got to breed everything you got.
Well, let's try to find one on here. I'm back.
Yeah, it'll be pretty far down. It's gonna be. Oh, there's one there. Right. So that's it.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay.
The picture beside it was I think one of the babies from the last litter.
Okay.
Yeah.
There we go. Wow. Man, I mean, yeah, that animal there speaks for itself. I mean, that is a golden tree boa.
Yeah, they're really cool. Yeah, that was a dream species for me to own. I've been into Corrales since almost day one into reptiles, and years and years ago. So there's a guy called Danny Mendez who had a website called urbanjungles.com. 25 years ago. He was really big into Corrales. He's a guy that basically introduced the tiger Amazon MORPH to captivity, and Danny's still about it. I don't know if he does a lot with Corrales anymore, but he's still about it. He's a great guy. But on his page, he had some Trinidad tree boas whenever they were still brought in, like 30 years ago. Okay. And I just thought they were amazing, just the size and just the whole look. But they were just not available. I had a chance to get a trio when I was back in Ireland, but they were in the US, and we were going to bring them in on one of the shipments that we were doing from the US, and the animals died at the importer. They were from the last legal export out of Trinidad, and that was 25, 26 years ago, maybe longer.
Wow.
So myself and Jeff Murray put a project together with the Trinidad government to legally export 10 wild-caught animals. Wow. And I forget when that was. That's maybe 2018, 2019.
Okay.
And I think we got 3.7. So he's got a group and I've got a group.
All right.
Bred them several times, and they're doing really well.
Wow. Yeah. So then at that point, when you two put that import together, were there any represented in the hobby anymore?
No, we basically hunted them all over the world, and there were none. If there's the odd one floating around in Europe, it might be extremely old, but we're not aware of any. A handful of years ago, there's a well-known or was a well-known importer. I'll say importer, even though they never imported, who claimed he was selling Trinidad tree boas. You're familiar with this individual?
I know,
but they weren't Trinidad. They were Venezuelan, because I know the people that actually brought them in, and I saw pictures of them when they were leaving Venezuela. So they were leaving Guyana, not Venezuela, and so they were Venezuelan tree boas, which are just as cool. They're really neat animals, but they're very different from Trinidad.
Hilarious. Yeah. No, I guess I'll say I'm glad we don't have those type of problems anymore. But
I think the next time I breed them, I'll probably bring some babies to Tinley to show off, not to sell, but to show off, and bring one of the adults, because they're such a cool animal.
Oh wow, that'll be a real showstopper.
Yeah, they're kind of neat.
Any chance that that's going to be October?
No, I don't know if I've got any gravid females. There's one that's kind of looking more gravid, but I need to, this year I was really complacent in the way I was cooling and putting things together. I had such a fall and winter last year with work and travel and stuff. Didn't do everything that I wanted to do at the timing that I wanted to do stuff. So I didn't really put things together. I didn't put emeralds together. I didn't put Trinidads together. I had one pair cohabbing, but I didn't see any breeding. I've got at least one gravid Amazon, but that was, you can breed Amazons in a wet paper bag. They're not difficult to breed. It doesn't take any effort. So yeah, probably not this year, but I'm hoping next year to have maybe 2 gravid, hopefully 2 females that I'll put together. Yeah, they're killer. I love them. Such cool snakes. If I keep, and so going back to that question from earlier on, that's probably the one. If I was told you can only have one snake species, that would probably be it.
Okay.
Because they're cool. They're really neat.
Yeah, beautiful. When it comes to Corrales, do you treat them all in a similar manner when it comes to breeding, cycling, all that stuff?
Pretty much, yeah. I put them through a feeding burst for the females to try and just put on some weight, and then I'll start doing that kind of 4-degree temperature drop.
Okay.
And then I'll increase kind of mistings and just let them do their thing. My rooms don't have any windows, so I just normally do like a 12 on, 12 off for light.
Okay.
But in the winter, I turn off the lights completely in that room. But my tree boas have lights in their enclosures, and I'll drop them down to like a 8 hours of light or whatever, and but I don't do a lot of work with them. I find that as long as they're healthy and they're eating well and they got good body weight, most of them will breed. And that I've had emeralds produce babies in I think as early as June and as late as November, I think.
Wow.
So they'll breed just whenever they're ready. That's why for a lot of the stuff, like for emeralds, some of the pairs I just keep together in pairs.
Okay.
And just let them do their own thing.
Okay.
And I've never really had a problem with it.
Sure.
But, I don't try to overthink the whole thing. The Sanzinia were definitely the one that I had to think most of this year.
Yeah.
About trying to get cold enough and stuff, so I bought some of those little Govee temperature monitors and I was able to plot day-night temperatures and humidity changes and stuff like that with those, because I wanted to see what they were going to get to. But the rest of the stuff, I kind of just let it fly and see what it's doing. And I find that in most cases, whenever the animals are healthy and they've got sufficient body weight, they breed.
Okay. So then let me ask you this, because this is something that I've been kind of struggling to get down. With any of these species where the seasonality isn't always super precise, what's your approach to feeding to where you're not feeding them too early in terms of their cycle, so where you're not getting more weight on these females than they really need, and now you're in a situation where you have to thin out an adult boa, in my case python, which everyone knows is a very difficult process.
Yeah, so my animals are never big, so they're never overweight.
Yeah.
And literally whenever I mean like feeding up, I'll for maybe 4 weeks or 6 weeks prior to kind of stopping feeding. So everything that I've got, I stopped feeding in November.
Okay.
And I don't feed again until March.
Okay. I
do a really strict, my colubrids I feed, obviously, I keep them going.
Yeah.
But everything else I stop feeding. And I find that just that little burst of food at the end before they go into cooling, and a slight burst of food at the beginning when they're coming out of cooling, that generally is enough for it. It just puts on a little bit of extra body weight.
Okay.
But I don't try to kind of feed for prolonged periods and put on a lot of weight onto the animals.
Yeah.
I want to see that they've got a good body weight. I don't want them to be fat going into. I don't want them to be overweight. But what I find is that just that little burst of feeding is just a trigger that, food's plenty. You can feed, gorge to abundance, whatever you want, and then you're ready. That helps the ova mature, I feel. I see it, and I've talked to Keith McPeak about this a number of times, and other people. Generally whenever I'm breeding snakes, once I see them starting to lock up with some frequency, I'll then separate them and I'll give the female a really big meal, bigger than she'll normally get. And very often I'll see that pushes, follicle maturation and push into ovulation. Okay. The first time I ever bred Amazon tree boas was basically that. I'd got this huge female 7 foot, at medium rat. She was an absolutely enormous Amazon. And I had her in an enclosure, and beside her I had a male that I had for a while, and I moved her into his enclosure to clean her enclosure. And when I looked over, they were wrapped up, and they wrapped up for maybe they bred for maybe an hour and a half, and then I moved her back again. The next day I went into the reptile store to get some rodents, and I bought a rat that was too big for her. I bought this; it was probably a large rat, not a medium. And I thought, well, I'll give her a go, and she ate it, and this thing was enormous. And then whenever the bulge from that subsided, then she swole up again and she ovulated.
Okay.
So it was a single breeding, and she produced 24 baby Amazons. So it was a single breeding, and it was and it was, at that point I was like, oh, it must be maybe that huge food item can help trigger that. So I've done that for the last 30 something years, breeding snakes. I give them big food items once they start breeding, and if they'll feed, and that triggers that. I did it literally. I was traveling when I was traveling at some point recently, and I fed a bunch of my boas, the females, meals that I thought would have been okay, but they were really big. And I'd actually sent my buddy Jonathan and Lucas pictures of these things. I thought, I'm away for a week. If these things regurge, my wife is going to divorce me. And literally within a month of that, everything started ovulating.
Wow.
So,
okay.
I go by that. So, for a seasonal, a lot of the stuff that I've got, I suppose you can breed Amazons any time of the year. You can breed emeralds theoretically any time of the year. I try to do it at, the one time, to try and keep everything in check, so that I've got a period. Like I love between November and March, you're not having to clean a cage. It's fantastic, and I like to keep that kind of routine going.
Yeah. No question about it. Yeah, any reptile with that seasonality, whether it be a colubrid brumating or a python or boa getting an off season, man, that's nice.
Yeah.
It's hard to beat that.
Yeah. I've had the odd thing do that there. I've seen a female ovulate and you throw a male in quickly. And I've had the odd, like I produce boas in most months of the year, but I certainly try to have them, I like my boas producing in kind of June, July, August, maybe September.
Yeah.
It was kind of weird. It was kind of funny because in Oklahoma, because they would have that natural cooling, they would always give birth. The majority of them would give birth the first or second week in June. But that was always the time whenever we went on vacation, and we would go from Tulsa to the Outer Banks, which is a 22-hour drive. So we would do that over a couple of days, spend 2 weeks there, and a couple of days. It was about a 3-week period where I wasn't there, and I had nobody looking after the house, checking on the animals. And multiple years in a row, I came home to 3 or 4 litters in enclosures. Thankfully, no dead stillborns or, things rotting. But and the ones where, they clearly gave birth, very shortly after I'd left, because the babies had all shed and they were all, so kind of just that natural cooling just seemed to put everything on that same cycle. And I try to keep that, I try to push it. I try to push it back a month, and it seemed to work okay. Because it's nice having babies a little bit earlier that I can then get established and then bring to something like the Atlanta show in August or Tinley. But certainly Tinley is just a good option for me because everything at that point is established and ready to go. Yeah. And I don't really vend shows. Ultimately, I want to do 2 shows a year, maybe 3, 2 Tinleys and maybe the Atlanta show. I'd be very happy with that there.
Definitely. Yeah, I've always felt that same way where I like the seasonality of it all. People are, I produce stuff every month of the year. I'm like, I don't know. I kind of like having a breeding season, a laying season, a baby season, an off season. It's kind of, I think this is how my brain works. We're like compartmentalizing these months within reason for this activity, that activity, that activity. Kind of keeps everything a little bit more like, keeps the blinders on a little bit.
Yeah, it allows me to focus a bit more. I've got so much other stuff going on in my life that, I don't think I'd have the, I don't think I would succeed very well if I was trying to breed aseasonally. And obviously this is completely a hobby to me. I don't want it to be a full-time job, so I like having that. I know what's going on at this period of time, and I know what's going on at that period of time, and I've never had an ultrasound machine. I've thought about getting one recently, but, I've always just gone by, I know when that female's in a pre-ovulation swell. I know what's going on and stuff. So yeah, I like that. I'm with you. I like that compartmentalization.
Well, I think that 30 years of track record shows you probably do not need an ultrasound. So.
Yeah, well, that's exactly it. And part of it is just out of interest.
Sure.
But I'm sure if I got one, it would just sit in the corner. I'd use it a handful of times, and it'd be nice. It'd be nice to be able to check what the emeralds are doing, but then again, I need to have someone else to help me with restraining a 6-foot angry emerald. So yeah, and as I say, it's not a job for me. So if babies are produced, it's all a bonus. So I don't need anything to breed. I'm happy just to keep animals around and stuff. So as much as I'd like one, if somebody came up to me at one point and said, I'll trade you this ultrasound machine for that there snake, and I didn't have a buyer for that snake, then I would probably do that. But I don't think I'm going to spend $2,500 on an ultrasound just for the fun of it.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, I'm a big palpating guy, so I definitely.
Yeah, that's what I've always done, and it's anything from a hognose snake or a small Antaresia up to a 6-7 foot boa. I've been able to do that pretty well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just all about the right touch. And I seem to have been able to work that out over the years.
Yeah, I got very lucky that one of my first mentors was very good at palpating. So I couldn't have been more than 13 or 14 years old learning how to palpate ball pythons. Yeah. So, that skill has definitely served me well over the years.
And they're easy, and definitely if you're palpating frequently, you can feel follicular change as it occurs. You know the size that you're predicting. So it is something it's easy to do. You just need to know what way to do it right without hurting the snake. It's depressing and it's not cracking ribs. It's getting depressing deep enough where you're not in the spine and stuff. But you need to know what you're doing. That's what I was doing last night with my Antaresia to find out which ones were gravid, which ones are developing. And you can even do it. Once they've had their post-ovulation shed, you can do it to determine whether they're going to have slugs or they're going to have good eggs, because you can see that you feel the size differences and stuff.
Yeah, no question about it. Yeah, I feel like my struggle is always restraint of like, you don't need to palpate that snake again. You just did it a week ago. Like, leave it alone.
Yeah. And I'm very hands off with my animals.
Yeah.
I feed them, I clean them. I'm not one that's taking them out, and probably I should have been doing that with the Timor pythons. Because I remember seeing like MJ when he would post his daily vlogs and stuff, and he would hold his Timors and they look placid.
Yep.
And mine are not like that. And I think whenever I got them, I was like, I'm going to hold these a lot more frequently and try and kind of keep them somewhat placid, and I just didn't. I just fell into the usual routine that I've got, so they're not placid. But yeah, I'm very hands off with my animals. Moving them around to breed. And if I'm pairing stuff up, or before I pair, I'll palpate. If I'm not seeing breeding, I'll palpate. And separate if they're not showing any follicular development. I'm not going to pair things whenever they're not kind of starting to mature follicles. But that's about it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Patrick's given us a little run through of easier and more difficult stuff to palpate: scrubs, big colubrids. But yeah, definitely chondros. I've been there. They just the movement pattern required to get the muscles relaxed is not ones that chondros like to partake in.
Yeah, right. Yeah, what I've done for everything is if they're in a rack or in an enclosure, I kind of take them out and I put the head and neck back in the enclosure and let them kind of crawl up, and then I'll palpate at that point. I find they're pretty relaxed at that point. But I've never palpated a chondro. I've only ever had one chondro in my life, so, and it was a male, so I've never had the opportunity for that.
He's still lurking, just talking shit. Palpating is for weirdos. That's like the nicest way you could have said that.
Wow. That's because he doesn't need to do anything. He just, whatever water he provides them or whatever way he looks at them, it's he gets things to breed. He's a disgusting human being.
A snake enters his house and it says, I am here to serve you. It is my pleasure to reproduce for the Python God. Python Jesus, I'm here to serve you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we can't all be here, Ryan.
I know he's a very humble person. I love Ryan. He's a great guy. You know,
That's why I feel the need to brag on his behalf.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, he has it. When do his BX scrubs hatch? They got to be soon, right?
oh yeah, it's got to be.
I'm just doing this to piss him off because this is going to jinx everything, right? They're all going to keel over.
Well, I mean, hey, he talked about it on here.
Yeah, I heard it. I was listening to that last
week or
2 nights ago.
Yeah, so I'm like, hey, we can talk about it as much as we want now. He did a whole ass show about it.
That's cool.
Yeah, I think like a little over a month now at this point.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's and you know, I actually am the reason why he bred his BX scrubs. So
yeah, I heard that there. Yeah.
I can actually take full credit if they do hatch that. You know, Ryan, they happened at Ryan's house and he bred them and he did everything, but it really is because of me.
Yeah. The closest I've got to BX scrubs is I don't know if we saw any at the museums. I can't remember, but shed skins that we extracted DNA from for sequencing for the project we're doing.
Okay.
So we did a bunch of that there, but I haven't seen the BX in the flesh.
Really? Yeah, it's
I'll need to get up to Ryan at some point and check out his stuff so that
yeah,
it'd be a good excuse to see those.
Take a little hiatus from IHS and see my BX scrubs.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's only 3 hours. That's right. Yeah.
But yeah, apparently my female just looked so perfect that he's like, "Fuck, I need to defeat this guy." And
yeah,
her follicles were so big that you could see them in her like eggs.
Right, that's amazing.
I've
seen that with other stuff before. I'm trying to remember what species it was, but I saw that in an animal that I was pairing. And I thought I'd missed it because they were so obvious. I thought that they were infertile ova. I think it was a rainbow boa maybe, and they were just huge. And I hadn't paired the female, so I thought it was infertile ova. And then, 3 or 4 days later, she ovulated, and I threw a male in with her because I wasn't planning to pair that animal that year because I'd bred them the year previous.
Okay.
And the follicles were just enormous, where I could see them. On the side, and as I say, she ovulated, and that's when I put a male in. They bred instantly, and then she produced like 19 babies. It was from one pairing.
Wow.
I thought I'd missed the window, but it was right at the kind of peak of ovulation. But yeah, it's kind of cool whenever you see that kind of thing. You don't see it with every species.
No, not at all. Yeah, it was cool to see it, but it was also very disheartening because I was staring at the male like, is it you? Are you even a male?
Yeah.
I had him out earlier today when I cleaned him, and everything about the snake screams male to me, but I'm still gonna have to put a probe in him at some point here soon because
yeah. Oh, I can understand that. I sold some caramel albino Sumatran short tails to Brandon Nixon. I think it was earlier this year. And he sent me a message. I was teaching a class and I got this message and he was like, Warren, have you ever ultrasounded this animal, the really big one? Do you think could it be a female? And I was like, no, I don't think it's a female. I saw that animal, try to copulate with other animals, other female short tails. He goes, so I'm pretty convinced it's a male. And he goes, well, I'm going to ultrasound it and I'll get back to you. I was like, fuck, don't let this be don't tell me I've sold him a missexed animal. Because sexing blood patterns could be a real pain in the ass, but he ultrasounded it and he saw that it wasn't a female. Thank God. He sent me that message today. And it just didn't have any interest in breeding. But you sometimes find that with animals, one year they could be really incredible breeders, and the next year they just sit back and they just don't give a stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, he probed it. I just did that. Yeah.
Oh yeah. What's up, Brandon?
Yeah. So it's good to hear because I was like, it couldn't be. There's no way it's a male or it's a female. And then I thought, God, I'd be really annoyed if I sold that female because that animal because it's big.
Yeah.
But, yeah. I'm glad it's a male. And it will breed for him. Just got to get it in the right mood.
I guess so. Yeah. He says that his females weren't good enough for him.
Sure.
One way to look at it.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
No, they're cool snakes. They're ones that I miss having, the Sumatran short tails. They're fun snakes.
Yeah. Okay. I've never personally kept any. Well, that's not true. one big ass blood python, but like really worked a project on any short tails. I've always appreciated them. I've always thought they're very beautiful snakes.
Yeah, I like the Sumatrans because they're small. You know, that whole group, they're tiny. Back in Northern Ireland, I had this beautiful pair of the black Sumatrans. You know, jet black with bright red eyes. They were really, really cool, but they were too big for me to be able to bring them over to the US. So I sold them back there, and I'd always wanted to get them here again. And then I got the caramels off Tracy Barker, and work with those. So they're wonderful. But again, I had to turn around and say, right, you know, I need to work out what space I've got for things, you know, because I ramped up my Brazilian rainbow boa project from having a pair to having 8.
Okay, it's a little ramp up,
you know, and I thought I need to really think about what projects I've got and where I'm kind of what enclosures I've got and so on. So I thought I'd have to. They're the ones that went out, sadly.
Okay. That's how it goes sometimes.
Yeah.
So I think that this is a general question from Lisa, but what's up with males that won't breed? I assume you just mean in general. That's a great question, Warren. What do you think? What's up with males that won't breed?
Well, it's a good question because it can. There's 2 ways you can look at it. One is that the female is not producing the pheromones that is enticing the male to breed, and the other one could be the male is just not ready to breed or in the mood to breed, and that can switch from one year to the next, and it can switch. Like I find with most of my boas, I put them together. I try to put them together January 1st. This year I put them together like February 1st.
Okay, but
they won't do anything for 6 weeks. They'll just look at each other. And then all of a sudden, one day, they'll just all switch and they'll just all start breeding. And then they won't stop breeding or stop courting until the female ovulates. And then that's it. They're done. They'll move away. So I do wonder whether, you know, that's obviously a female trigger at that point is kind of the females at that point releasing the right pheromones and that's enticing the male. So I think that's probably a big thing. And the fact that we can see males that are really great breeders one year just not want to breed at all the next is, I think, kind of coincides with that, their idea, that thinking. But then again, I had an Amazon tree boa that it was one of the first ones I got. It had one eye from the wild. It was crazy old kind of animal. That thing would breed itself if it could. I watched it spurring itself. I watched it spurring branches that it was on. You know,
it's fine.
You know, and every month of the year it would do that. You know, so I think it's a good question, Lisa, and it's probably somewhat species specific.
Yeah,
and it's very individual specific as well. Some of them are great breeders, and some of them are just they just don't want to do it. You know, like last year when I bred Dunn's pythons, I put them together. I didn't see anything for 3 months, and then one day I opened up the tub, and they were locked up, and then a week later she ovulated. And this year I did the exact same thing.
Damn.
And I don't think they did. I didn't see any breeding this year. And I palpated her a couple of days ago, and I didn't feel anything. So, you know, yet she was in great condition, and you know, so just something didn't stimulate follicular maturation. You know. So, yeah, I think a lot of it's just, you know, you need to keep the animals together long enough as well.
Yeah,
you know, some of them could take a while before they really start breeding, and then for some species, especially boas and pythons, especially boas, they court for a long time. They don't necessarily breed for a long time.
Gotcha.
You know, my one of my West Snake key pairs I've had together for 3 months, and they would breed here and there, but maybe once, and then not for another 3 or 4 weeks, and then but saw nothing. And then last week or 10 days ago, the female started to go into a pre-ovulation swell, and the male immediately locked up with her for a long time and saw it. Definitely he was doing what he should have been doing, and then, you know, kind of a week later she ovulated.
Wow.
So I think you know, they need to be in there long enough to go through the whole process.
Okay.
But yeah, so it'd be interesting if Lisa keeps those males in longer with those animals. But another thing I've been wondering is if you co-have animals, like a pair together permanently, does that kind of desensitize them to each other, because they're constantly being exposed to pheromones that are being released and so on. So are we better keeping them separate and then just introducing here and there? I don't know. It's a
Yeah.
good question. I haven't thought too much into it.
I think it's very dependent on what you're talking about because, obviously totally different, but with my Spilotes, I never had success until I started permanently cohabbing them.
Really?
And they know when it's time, and they'll, and when the males want to breed, I mean, they're very demonstrative breeders. They'll chase the female around for a few hours if they need to get her. But like, they're not harassing them constantly throughout the year.
Right.
During the summer, during the fall, they sit together most of the time. They're very social with each other, but then when it's time, it's like, all right, we're doing it. And then as soon as that part of it is taken care of, they're just back to normal. Like when the females are gravid, I don't see the males harassing them or anything like that. Like, obviously we're talking colubrids in this instance. But
I suppose the other one is the presence of other males. So getting some male competition going.
Yeah. And
I've definitely seen that with some animals that it's worked really well with. I had a pair of boas together this year, and the male was doing nothing, no interest at all. So I moved a male in from an enclosure above into it just to see. And within 30 minutes, that original male was locked up with a female and didn't stop breeding her until she ovulated. So I think the presence of other males can certainly help.
Sure.
I saw Lisa also commenting about putting a male with 2 females.
Yeah.
I've done that in the past, and I've found that the male only breeds 1 female.
Yeah.
It hasn't necessarily stimulated them to want to breed. I don't see it. And I would never put 5.5 rainbows together. God, my adult Brazilians are feisty. They will definitely take a bite from you if they get an opportunity, because I don't handle them.
Okay.
So the thought of having 10 of them in one enclosure and trying to separate them, they're very, those are ones that either very food oriented. So if something moves suddenly in the enclosure, I've had to take them apart several times when I've paired them up.
Gotcha.
Because they've been so food oriented.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah.
10 snakes in one enclosure that'd be a wild time.
Yeah, I used to see that when I moved to the US. My friends in Delaware had my animals, and they lived very close to Peter Cal, and they were friends with Peter Cal. And we went down, whenever I went up to collect them, we went down to see his animals. That's whenever he had these 2 warehouses side by side in an industrial estate. One had just boas and one had ball pythons. And we went into the ball python room after seeing the boas, and he had those like 6-foot freedom breeders, and he would open up this tub and there would be like 19 female pieds and 1 candy ball. And in the next tub, 19 female pieds and 1 candy ball. And the next row, 19 female pieds and 1 candy ball. And then he'd put up another one that was like 19 candy balls and 1 pied, that kind of thing. And it was one male that was breeding all of those things. And
how would he feed what would he do to feed all of them?
Maybe he just didn't feed them at that point. I don't know.
Interesting.
But I will tell you that this was a big ass facility that he had. And on one wall in the ball python building, when you walked into it, on one wall, it was all just baby racks. From what I remember, I stopped counting pieds at like 300. So he was producing a lot of animals from those kind of pairings.
That's fascinating.
So, they seem to be able to do it, but just and they're ball pythons, so they'd be pretty straightforward. But putting anything that likes to eat each other or is feisty, I couldn't do it.
Well, yeah, like Lisa's saying right here, she had a friend put 2.3 ring pythons in a tub. That sounds like a terrifying precedent, but
that's a species I would like to keep. I've never kept pythons.
Neither have I.
Yeah, I would like to. I keep seeing them. I saw some at Tinley. I thought that looked pretty cool, but I'm not buying any more snakes, so I've got everything that I need, But I keep saying that, and then another one appears. But I'd like to get rings at some point. They're kind of cool. Yeah,
it's a cool concept of the one male with a tub full of females. It's like taking like rodent breeding kind of philosophy and applying it to snakes.
So here's why that doesn't work with all snakes. You know, we have to remember
most, yeah.
Spermatogenesis is, it happens generally one time of the year for snakes.
Yeah.
So once they use that all up, there's nothing left. So they could be breeding away, but totally shooting blanks.
Not doing anything. Yeah.
Yeah. So therefore, having them all together, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And also, you know, I like to be able to track which males are breeding which females. You know, of course, I can do it genetically. I could separate any baby that I've got, but I like to have a little bit more. I'm very specific about what I don't pair things that I don't want to produce for a specific reason.
Right.
You know, and I think about projects 2 to 3 generations down. So what do I need to make to get to that? So putting lots of animals together doesn't work for me.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Interesting comment from Patrick here. So Pete Call hoarded pieds and then flooded them out. In 2005, Patrick went on to Pete's site. He had 99 pieds available for 7 to 10K each based on level of white. 1 month later, he had 49 available.
Oh, yeah.
What a month.
Yeah, whenever I was there, so that would have been 2000 and
that's crazy.
Would have been 2006. He was selling, I think, for 1,000 or 1,500 each.
Mm-hmm.
As I said, he had, I think it was 300 or 400 I stopped counting at. And he sold them all. Like he built a big house, and I wouldn't have liked to have seen what it would have cost to keep that facility going, because he had a lot of animals, you know, between all the ball pythons and all the boas, you know.
Yeah. No, as much as like I love always hearing the stories of some of those, you know, the guys who had the big production facilities back in the day. I mean, you know, there are some now. I don't think quite as many, but almost nothing about that appeals to me.
The thought of just producing so many would make me ill. I've got what I've got enough where I can clean them all, feed them all, you know, afford to keep them. With the cost of rats nowadays, God, it's changing that there a little bit. But these people have produced just so many animals because the market's so unstable. You know, like we produced 2 clutches of womas last year, so I think it was 18 or 19 babies, and 2 years ago they probably would have disappeared within a month of advertising. These things took a long time to move, to the point that we didn't pair our womas this year, and then all of a sudden, in the space of 6 weeks, they all went. You know, literally at Tinley, we brought our last 4. I think we might have 1 pair left, but we brought 4 to Tinley. And within the first hour, they were all gone. And people were coming up asking, do we have any womas? And I was like, at the Atlanta show, we had like 12 of them. And we sold 3, you know, and we could have sold womas continually at that Tinley. So, I like producing what I've got and the numbers that I've got, you know, 4, 5, 6 boa litters a year, maybe some tree boas, maybe some pythons, but enough for me to be able to sell. And, you know, and the only reason I've started doing shows is I like going to reptile shows, you know, and I don't want to do the reptile. I did some local ones here, and while we sold a bunch of animals, I just didn't enjoy the show. So being able to go to Tinley, because I don't just get to do that stuff, I get to hang out with friends in the evening, you know, so, you know, I like doing that as well. So I don't want to produce so much that I'm overrun and I have to wholesale everything.
Yeah, no question. It's and then, like you said, with the cost of feeders and everything like that, if you want to look at it from a purely business standpoint these days, you're probably much better off having a lower yield and just maximizing each individual sale that you're making from what you're producing. So,
and I think also with that, you need to have diversity of what you produce. I think helps. Yeah. But also diversity of price points. You know, for everything from the $150 snake that a kid might buy to the X number of thousand that you might sell a handful of a year.
Yeah.
But, you know, they're not going to be your bread and butter. So trying to produce constantly high end stuff like that there could put you in a bad position trying to sell them, you know. So I like that kind of range. You know, everything that we sold at Tinley was all in the $400 to $600 range, you know, and that seems to be a sweet spot for people that have got, you know, the spare cash that they can afford to spend. You know, other Costa Rican T positive stuff I sold out really, really quickly. That was a specific group of people that knew what they wanted, you know, and had contacted me in advance. Yeah. So, but yeah, overproducing would scare me. Having too many animals, I don't want to get to the point where it feels like a job, you know, where I'm not able to keep up with it, you know.
Yeah, I get that. I even with it being my job, I hate feeling like behind or whatever. So I think I've gotten it to a good level where it's like I'm just below 200 snakes, and it's very reasonable at this point for me.
Yeah, and a whole bunch of yours are pretty big. So like cleaning an animal, it takes a lot longer to clean 12 scrub pythons than it does to clean 12 Antaresia.
Sure.
Right? You know.
No doubt.
Yeah. So, but yeah. So there's no way I could do that number of larger animals. Like, you know, I've probably got 100 and I don't know, 110, 120 animals. I don't know, without babies. But because of the size of them, I can clean those pretty easily. You know, I'll take a morning or I'll take an evening. You know, I only really get to work with my animals at night whenever my wife goes to bed and my kids are in bed. But I can go down there and stick on a podcast or something like that there and clean snakes for 2 hours, 3 hours, and work my way through it. But I'm at a number where I can maintain everything happily. I'm also at a number now where there's no space to have any more animals, so it puts me in a good position of not being able to get any more.
Yeah.
So and that number has been reached, and I'm happy with it.
Yeah. No, I get that. Yeah. You know, it's obviously this whole reptile world takes you on a bunch of different paths, but I'm at a place now where I have very little inclination to add any animals to my collection. I just want to grow it from the inside at this point. And not having I have a few snakes in quarantine, and that's really about it. I'm like, this is not bad. So
yeah, it would have to be something special for me to want to get it. And I'd have to push something else out, I think, to do that there, you know. And I'm kind of at the happy point where I am, you know.
Is there anything that you might fit the criteria for the exception these days in your mind?
I don't really know. You know, I'd like, you know, the T positive Sonoran, the T positive Mexican boas. The problem is the ones that are about are not Sigma, they're Imperator. So, and then the pied Sigma that is about, that's in the US, the person doesn't appear to be interested in breeding it to other Sigma. So that project's kind of out the window for me. You know, I would like to have that pure to breed into my pure Sonoran kind of line morph boas. Is there anything else? I wouldn't mind getting a pair of Amazon Basin Emeralds. That'd be kind of cool. But I think that's, and I'd like to get a pair of the Mandarin Sanzinia, because I just have the greens. No, it's terrible. Yeah, Lisa said Crapani's bow. Yeah, but that's never happening. So it's, you know, I'd be happy to see a Corrallis Crapani in the wild. That'd be kind of cool. I'd love to see what a baby looks like as well. But yeah, I think I've got everything that I want. I've got. You know,
that's a good place to be.
Yeah, I think I do say that, and then the odd thing pops up, you know, on Instagram, whatever, and I'm like, ooh, that'd be kind of cool. But
yeah,
I was talking to my buddy Jonathan a couple of days ago, and I think I mentioned something, but the fact that I can't remember it now means that that it obviously wasn't that significant.
Yeah, didn't stick out that much to you.
Yeah, it's funny with my son doing the leopard geckos. I got really into the leopard geckos again. They were the first reptile I ever kept, and now my son's into them and breeding them. And I'd like to get some of the Eublepharus hardwicki. They're one of the kind of rare species of them. I wouldn't mind getting a little, like, pair or trio of those for my office at work.
Okay,
cool. I think that would be what I would add, I think.
Yeah. Leopard geckos were the first thing that I bred as well, and I really like some of the different other, you know, related species that aren't morphed out, like the Engramanu.
Yeah.
Those. I mean, man, they're like a big, like 9-10 inch Engramanus. They're such a crazy looking lizard. It's like,
yeah, they're weird because they've got,
why are you this big?
And I think the thing that I don't like about them is that the fact that they're so long and spindly legs, and their head is fortunately large, but they're neat animals.
Yeah.
But the fuscus and the hardwick I think they're really cool, and that is something I almost did buy at Tinley.
Really?
Yeah, there was a pair of hardwick at a table, and I was so close, but I resisted.
Yeah.
You know, but I'm sure at some point I will see them again, and I'll pick some up. But you know, that's just for a desk pet for my office at work. It's not for anything else. You know,
Tinley is always a good show for kind of cool, obscure geckos.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That's what I saw a lot. So I didn't get to see a lot of stuff at Tinley, but that's one of the things that I did see. You know, when I walked around, I saw these little obscure Australian geckos and stuff like that there. I thought that was kind of cool. You know, I could, for me, that would be a terrible wormhole to get into, because once, you know, you get one thing, I'd be wanting these other little rare ones. And, you know, I keep looking at the there's Australian, what are the Australian geckos, the
Nephurus.
Yes, Nephurus. I keep seeing those, and you know, so the way it works with my son, I got him. He originally wanted to get a leopard gecko. And I told him he had to research them and really look into it. So he spent about a year kind of reading and looking up, and I ended up trading a snake for 3 females.
Okay.
That were, you know, they're worth about $1,200 or $1,500. So he ended up getting not 1 but 3 females that were really pretty nice animals. And I then went to Steve Sykes and bought a male to go with it. So we ended up with like a $2,000 leopard gecko project.
Not bad.
But the way it works is if he breeds them and we sell them, that money goes into a bank account, and he can't touch that until he's 18. And he's done pretty well from it. And he can only use it to invest back into his leopard geckos or other reptiles that he might want to get.
In the meantime?
Huh?
In the meantime?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so he can't take it out to go and buy anything with it.
Yeah.
Other than for that project.
That's a reasonable arrangement.
Yeah. You know,
for that.
he's 8 years old. By the time he's 18, you know, in a Roth IRA with compound interest, he'll be pretty happy. And he produced 17 or 18 babies last year at $150 a piece. So
not bad.
So he bought 2 Black Knight leopard geckos last year for his project, and they're breeding this year, which is kind of cool. But I keep showing him these pictures of the Nephurus geckos, and he looks pretty excited by them, but he hasn't pulled the plug yet on those.
Okay,
so
cool.
Maybe I can live vicariously through him with those geckos.
That's awesome. Yeah.
That's
really cool. Hell yeah, that's awesome, man. I'm excited to see the progress of his gecko project here going forward. It's
what he produced is amazing. You know, like whenever I got leopard geckos 32 years ago, you just had wild type leopard geckos pretty much, especially in Northern Ireland, you know. And then I bought a trio of Tremperline albinos whenever they became available from a guy called Ray Hine in the UK, and they were fun. And then I got what they call then a leucistic, which is now known as a Murphy patternless. But you know, I can't remember how much I paid for the Tremperline albinos, but they weren't cheap. And they were I think they were the first ones in Ireland, maybe. But now you look at the stuff that is available, and it's just mind blowing. It's equivalent to the ball python market, you know, in terms of the number of morphs and the colors.
Oh, sure,
they're so cool, because for an 8-year-old, obviously his dad's a geneticist, so he kind of lives genetics vicariously through me. But he also got, he's got 2 incubators. He's got one for females and one for males. You know, he's raising his own food for them.
Cool.
So he's got all these little things, his own little projects. So it's kind of cool. Nice. You know, I like the way he's getting into it.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's fun.
Beautiful. We've now gotten mentioned this twice in the comments. So your hybrid,
the Emerald Amazon hybrid. Yeah, it's so it's a female. It was produced by a wild caught female emerald that was brought in and gave birth, I think, about a month after import. To a shop, a reptile shop in Las Vegas. They had 3, and Dayton Croydon got 1. His is a male. The other one, we don't know where it went. It was offered for sale at one point for like $3,500, but seems to have disappeared. And then I got mine. It wasn't expensive. I think it was like $700 or $800 whenever I got it, because they're, the history of them is not very good. They haven't done well over time.
Okay.
But mine and Dayton seem to be doing fine. I don't pay much attention to it anymore. When I got it, it was like brown, maybe. Again, it's on my Instagram, but if you scroll way back,
let's
maybe
get
4 or 5 years ago, you'll find a picture of it when it's brown, and then it slowly changed color and it's now blue. So it's kind of a cool little beast. So that's it there.
23, so definitely much more developed here.
Yeah. So that's it. It changed. So it's much more like that now. It's slightly more blue.
Okay.
The cream, the cream on the top. So it's the proportion of an Amazon, but it's got some of the build of a. So that's good color transition. So you can see it's kind of darker there.
A little more orange.
And then if you go further kind of down, you'll see it. I think it went through a red phase maybe, and
yeah. Let's see if we can get it.
It's kind of cool. I always wanted to do one of these. So that's it also. So totally different.
Yeah.
I wanted to do, when people do it with their children, like pictures at 1 month and 2 months and 3 months.
Yeah.
I've probably got pictures of it, most months from birth. I should kind of put them together. Yeah. So at that point it was kind of pink in color.
Yeah.
So it was kind of neat to see it going through kind of the color change. And, at some point in time, I will try and produce some here just for fun. They are, so really, really different. So when was that? That's 248 weeks ago, whatever that was. Yeah, so it's a while ago. So 21. So I think I got it in the winter of 2020.
Let's see. We got another one there. Yeah. Let's see. I mean, that's very orange. That's crazy looking.
So September 2020 it was produced. So it's 6 years old. Well, 5.5 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was orange there. I think it was darker than that. I think whenever I got it, it might have been. Yeah. So we're probably getting to some of the earlier pictures of it. Yeah, there you go. Like that one there.
Yeah.
So I had no idea what it was going to turn out like. So the fact that it ultimately ended up turning kind of blue and cream was kind of a cool.
So this is after its first meal in your care. Then maybe this is the, yeah. Huh. That's that. So very interesting.
Yeah, cool snake. Yeah, you can see it sitting on a little deli cup there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any quirks or anything going on?
No, it does what it does. It feeds, it sheds, it, But I could turn around tomorrow and it could be dead. It could just drop dead. Who knows? But
sure.
I don't have any real intentions to try and breed it. It's just a desk pet kind of thing. It's just fun to have.
So Lisa asked a good question here. Was it from a mixed litter?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So in the litter there were also emeralds. I've got pictures of it all. I'll have to kind of find them and I'll send them to Lisa if I remember. But because it was funny that the person that had them born in the shop, they thought they were all hybrids, and I had to tell them no, that those ones that look like emeralds are just emerald tree boas, emerald tree boas, but they're emerald tree boas, and then the other 3 were hybrids.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so it's and it's been done in captivity. There have been several litters being produced in captivity. John Martin did it twice. But every one of his animals, they died after a very short period of time. I think he raised some up to adulthood, but they were difficult. He had trouble with them shedding. He had trouble with respiratory issues with them. He got a male to breed. I think it produced 1 offspring and it didn't make it. And ultimately they didn't do well, But there've been, I had another one, maybe 20 something years ago that was sitting it was born in Suriname, shipped to the US, and it was sitting in the exporter's facility waiting because I was getting animals from that importer, and they were going to ship them to Ireland, and it died before it was able to get shipped. So sometimes they do well, sometimes sometimes they don't. And the one that Dayton has and the one that I've got seem to be doing okay.
Okay. Huh. Hey,
But we'll see. You know, I'm not it could turn around next week and just drop dead. So who knows?
Yeah.
But until I'll keep it going and see how it goes. But I do have a plan to pair a leopard Amazon male with a anaconda phase emerald for fun, and so I'll do that at some point to see what happens, or a tiger Amazon to a anaconda phase emerald. You know, I think it'd be kind of fun to see the stripes on one of those hybrids.
that would be pretty cool, huh?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, the problem is you just have to keep everything but right, because you don't know what they're going to turn out like. So you just got to hold everything back and have the space. So yeah, one day I will.
Hey, that's that'll be an interesting project for sure, man. That's,
yeah.
Huh.
I've got lots of other projects, you know, to keep me busy until then.
Sure.
Yeah.
enough non-hybrid projects to justify one.
Yeah. Like I've really immersed myself in Antaresia. I love the Duns pythons, you know, so it'd be nice to kind of get, you know, more things going with those.
Yeah.
I'd love to try and breed the Timors at some point if they haven't killed me by that stage, or I haven't killed them. It was shitting all over my floor, but yeah.
Yeah, the Duns are one that, I mean, man, it's so cool that those animals are out there in the hobby now, when, you know, 10 years ago, they
right. You know, and I remember them in the UK, and this is probably 25 years ago. There was an importer called Liz Phillips, and she would put out her you know, monthly price list. I think she would put them out in like Reptilian magazine or something. And every so often, you know, one period over the space of a couple of months, we saw Duns pythons on that list. And I think they were like £85 each for adults. They weren't expensive. And I thought about getting them, and then I didn't. And I think that's the problem. People did, and then thought, well, they're just like Macklot's pythons, and they didn't really care.
Yeah.
They just dwindled away. But thankfully, Ryan and Nick made a concerted effort to track down animals and to try and breed them, and they thankfully did. So, you know, I love them. I think they're a really cool snake. Mine don't have the size of a Macklot's. They're just really cool animals. They eat really well. They, you know, I've produced them. You know, I got a nice clutch from them last year. It was great to produce those babies. I sent some back up to Ryan, and then I sold the other ones. And yeah, people seem to be pretty happy with them. You know, I should have kept one or two of them back, but I didn't. But I'll probably do that with the next clutches I produce. I'll probably trade out for other ones that people have.
Very good.
They're a cool snake, but again, it's just part of kind of maintaining these things in captivity. You know, if you know, I produce more, you know, if other people that have them produce them, you know, the price could drop very dramatically on them, and they could go into that phase of spiraling out again. You know, whenever they become too cheap and too common, people don't want them.
Yeah.
You see that happen with Hog Island boas. You've seen it happen with Brazilian rainbow boas. You've seen it happen with Dumerals boas. They go with these sometimes cyclical, especially in the UK, to the point that people, you know, once they're in that downturn, people just don't want to breed them, and then we start losing animals. So, you know, so, you know, as mentioned, are there other animals that I would get? I was thinking about getting some Calabar pythons, just because I think they're fun, and it would be kind of cool to try and breed them and to have captive bred babies.
Yeah.
And they could sit in a V in one of the ARS 40 tubs or whatever, 50 tubs or whatever, very happily all their life. But, you know, that's something I would consider picking up just because of an obscure animal that's not commonly bred. But that's one of the reasons I like the Duns pythons. They're more obscure, they're not commonly bred, and they were on the brink of extinction in captivity. Yeah. Just like there's only a couple of us that have got West Snake key boas. You know, there's more crawl keys and stuff like that there. But again, it's somewhat of the relative obscurity, and trying to maintain these in captivity really appeals to me.
Yeah, definitely. I had a trio that was from a friend of mine for maybe 6 months or so, and they definitely some of the more odd snakes I've ever encountered, but they were neat.
Yeah.
Isn't Keith working with them right now?
The Calibars, I think he is. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I've seen him post them.
Yeah,
that's definitely an interesting one. I mean, Yeah.
You know, you're not going to make a lot of money from them, but I think it'd be kind of cool to see the whole process.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
I've seen captive bred babies a handful of times, or captive hatch babies. I think, what's the one, Outback Reptiles? I think they had them a number of years ago, and they look pretty neat.
Okay.
You know, they're $150 snake, probably captive bred. What are they, like $50 wild caught? You know, but I think they're just kind of a cool little beast.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, they're neat, and that's that's what this hobby is all about, is finding little oddball things to give a shot to, and just see if you enjoy it. Try to help a species, establish a foothold in the hobby, and
I think it's also good for anybody that keeps to have a little bit of diversity. You know, instead of having just a monoculture of one thing, I think having, because for a period of time I just had boas, just boa sigma and boa imperator, which are pretty much identical, right? But it was whenever I started adding the other stuff to it, getting back into tree boas, getting, into, the Antaresia and stuff like that there, and the rainbows. God, I really love the rainbow boas now. It's just been a lot of fun, and they all have their own little personalities, their own little quirks that make keeping it really interesting.
Yeah.
The house snakes that I've got are fantastic. They're cool little guys. The speckled or the desert kings are cool. The hognose snakes are fun, so it just adds a little bit more flavor to whenever I go down in those rooms and checking things out.
Yeah, I mean, getting too monoculture with it just it eliminates what probably got everybody interested in this to begin with.
Yeah, and I understand that some people are really into it. Like, you've seen what way the ball python market's gone, and the ball python hobby has probably done more for the reptile hobby in general than any other species, and so I don't have anything against ball pythons and people that keep them.
Yeah.
I just, I've been through that phase and it didn't work for me. And I like having a little bit more diversity just to kind of keep things kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Of course I've got 70 boas, but and a whole bunch of corrales, but not everyone. But there's quirks between an Amazon and an annulated and a Russian eye that make them all kind of unique and individual. So I like having that that diversity. It keeps me healthy.
Yes, same. I mean, that's kind of what my snakes kind of fit a just like a category. Even between the colubrids and the pythons, they're similar to each other in some ways, but that, and then my little room with my rattlesnakes, that's like the fully different than everything else that's going on.
I don't have any venomous, the hognose snakes, but I don't have any venomous, and I don't have any plans. But God, if I did, it would be some of the kind of the old world tree vipers.
Mm-hmm.
I love wagglers. I love kind of those. I've always loved wagglers, and even kind of the new world, the eyelash vipers. One of my, anytime I went to Costa Rica, and I went to Costa Rica every year for about 10 years or 11 years while I was in Oklahoma, and took students into the rainforest for 10 days for a course, and we'd always see eyelash vipers.
Yeah.
And I could imagine, having a couple of those, but my wife says no, and I agree with her. I don't need to have any venomous stuff. And those little montane rattlesnakes are just incredible. Like, seeing the ones that Bob Ashley has or had always kind of blew my mind. I like those a lot.
Yeah, I got a very similar kind of species diversity to what Bob has. So
he's got a cool group. Whenever you get the tour of the behind the scenes part of his own collection, and you see a lot of those little things, they're pretty mind blowing.
Yeah, they really are, and they're the easiest snakes in the world to take care of.
Really?
They take. I mean, you kind of have to. If you do too much with them, you're getting yourself into trouble. It's like they eat infrequently. If you try to feed them too much, you run into troubles. They're cooler, so their metabolisms are slower. Everything about them happens slowly. They're very low waste. They're just kind of sitting there being pretty all the time.
Yeah. They're beautiful. I just can't do it. Too much risk. I don't want to risk a bite. I don't want to risk my family for anything like that. And but I like to look at those. But God, Wagler's vipers. They're the one that really does it for me.
Yeah, they're gorgeous.
Yeah,
I always love seeing the clips of that like temple in China where people
Yeah,
just go in and just start holding, and like nobody ever gets bitten in this temple for whatever reason. And
like I'd see the old pictures that Tommy Crutchfield would post of him and Brian Sharp out there and holding them, and like one sitting on their head, and I'm like, getting out, right? Yeah, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen for me. You know, I'd love to go there and see them. You know, I'd love to see them in the wild, but it's not going to happen. Yeah, I'm sure Patrick's got them. He's got most things right.
Oh yeah, I know he's got the Waggler eye, he's got the Latus Sanctus, and
they're pretty cool.
My only old world venomous are my my Mangshans.
Oh, you have? Oh wow, you got Mangshans.
Yeah,
they're really cool.
They are. They're amazing. Yeah, they're the only thing that's like nothing. I mean, they come from the same kind of montane climate, so they fit that theme. But they're the only old world. I had 3 pairs. I just have 1 pair now. I sold 2 of the pairs of them, but they're adults. They're like 6 to 7 feet long.
I like those, and I like the what are the other, the Parviocula, the
Ethiopian mountain vipers.
Yeah, so I
had them for a while too.
I saw both of those at the Dallas Zoo. A friend of mine was a curator there, and he would always give me behind the scenes tours because they got, I think, one of the largest venomous collections in North America. So what's behind the scenes is just unreal. But anytime he showed me the Parviocula, they just blew me away. But also the Mangshans, they were just, the size of them was just unreal. You know, they're beasts.
Patrick has Parviocula too now.
Good God. I'm gonna have to get him to send me some pictures of those. I like those a lot.
Yeah, I did enjoy the Parviocula. They're, they had a reputation of being like these crazy fucking flipping all over the place snakes. They were never like that with me, but I moved with one female. I ended up losing her that winter. And after that, I was like, all right, I need to get them again. And then I thought about it a little bit. I'm like, that was the one snake I had where if it bit me, like, I'm probably going to die.
Yeah.
I think I'm actually gonna call it here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, like the Mangs they're big and they're nothing to fuck with, but I'm
trying to think who it was either Knoxville Zoo or it was Virginia Zoo that bred Parviocula a year or 2 ago. I think it was Knoxville Zoo.
Okay.
Because I was there, a friend of mine is the reptile curator at Knoxville Zoo. We were behind the scenes, and I think he showed us those.
Yeah,
they're just beautiful. They're just cool.
They're so gorgeous. Yeah, I actually, it's kind of funny. I have a bunch of pictures in my phone from my the first time I went behind the scenes at San Diego. This was probably the beginning of 2019, and I had so many pictures and from that day of Parviocula, Mangshans, and then the Ammopolis ridge nose rattlesnakes.
Oh yeah, cool. Yeah.
And just like years later, I was scrolling back and I'm like, oh, that's my room now. What the fuck? So cool. So
yeah. The Dallas Zoo is cool because, in behind the scenes they've got a cold room, and you get all that, montane stuff, and it's amazing the temperatures. People who haven't experienced, those cold climate, temperate species, it's amazing how cool they get those things, and they're active and they're eating and they're healthy. They're just really cool.
Yeah,
really cool. Yeah, I love them, but look at, don't touch.
Yes, no doubt about it. Yeah, that's kind of my thing. Just I have them all set up where I never give myself a reason where I need to remove an animal from the enclosure.
Right.
Just kind of work around them, use tools, and the snakes also, they get very accustomed to how they're being worked. So, the most they'll ever get is a little bit of feeding response, and I just kind of like push them back a little bit, and they give that up, and then just kind of switch the water, do a little spot cleaning with the forceps, and then move on. And it's a nice little setup that we have. We have an agreement of when I'm in there, they just kind of chill. So
yeah. So how many do you have?
Right now I have a few that are about to go out in a few days, but at my peak, I had a a little over 100 venomous.
Holy shit!
Yeah, it was just unnecessary. So I think after this next group goes out that I just sold, I'll have like just above 50.
Wow. Okay.
And my goal is to get it to about 40.
Yeah.
Venomous, where it's my one pair of Manxians and then just a bunch of different localities and species of montane rattlesnakes.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So
have you are your Manxians adult?
Yeah, they're adults.
Oh, cool.
They're adults. They're about probably 9 years old.
Oh, no way. So are you trying to breed them?
Yeah, kind of. I really need to move them from the room they're in into my rattlesnake room. Because I have 2 guest bedrooms that are my venomous rooms, and but then one of them also has my rodents in it, and they just screw up the they heat the room. Obviously, they're mammals, and then if I was just running like air conditioners in there, and like they'd fuck up the units every now and then, and it would get real hot in there. But then the other room is just like is perfect because there's no rodents producing a shit ton of dust, clogging up the AC. So my plan has kind of been to reduce the size of the venomous collection to where I can fit the 2 big main cages into the room of all the exoteras with the rattlesnakes in it, and then just kind of have that room, and then from there, like actually able to put significant effort into breeding them, because kind of a little bit of a callback to earlier, I've had them cohabbed for quite some time.
Wow. Okay.
And I think it has gotten to the point where they're just complacent with each other.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So, because I got the animals that that Crutchfield had.
Okay. Oh, cool. Okay.
And he had them all cohabbed in one big cage.
Yeah, I saw that enclosure he had. Yeah.
So, yeah, I just think that for one, I just haven't gotten the cycle right. I got them. I think I got them cool enough over the winter. I don't think that I had that problem. But I think just the room that they're in now, I mean, if I'm being honest, it's the rodent room at this point. That's the priority going on in there. They just happen to still be in that room. So
yeah, there was at IHS a couple of years ago when I was there was a talk about Manxian breeding, one of the zoos.
Okay,
it was pretty cool.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, I mean, it seems like it's not impossible by any means. I mean, plenty.
I've certainly seen, in the last couple of years, I've certainly seen photos every year of hatching. So
I mean, Michael Egley in Europe, he's produced probably damn near 20 clutches at this point. Yeah, I mean, all of the Mangs that are in the U.S. just have been coming from him. I
suppose the problem is if you produce them, you then have to sell them, and they produce pretty decent clutches, right? And
that's the problem, is that they were kind of like this unattainable thing for so long.
Yeah.
And then over the course of 5 years, hundreds of them flooded into the US.
Right. Okay.
And now they're not worth a whole lot currently. So yeah, at this point for me, it's just like, well, I just really love these snakes.
Yeah.
And I've always been fascinated with them. And is this really a project that I could consider as like a business asset? Probably.
Yeah. I suppose there's a limited number of people that want a 6 foot. 7 foot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when the supply isn't high, those people want them. But as soon as they all have them, your market has been fulfilled. So now what are you going to do?
Yeah. And how are they for anti-venom?
I think that the green pit viper venom, anti-venom, is used for them effectively. They don't have a specific, but yeah, that's how they take care of that. So
yeah, no, I like to see them at zoos.
Yeah,
that'll do me. That keeps me happy.
That's the other thing for me too, is like I'll just keep stuff that can be treated with crowfab.
Yeah, sure.
That seems a little bit more reasonable, but then at the same time,
how close are you to a good hospital then?
Oh, not far, less than 10 minutes.
Oh, okay, then good.
Yeah. So and luckily, I'm in a part of the country where snake bites Can happen.
Yeah.
So it's not like, you're going to a hospital that never treats snake bites.
Yeah.
And also the snakes that people could be bitten by here are the snakes that I have. So I like rock rattlesnakes. But yeah, the goal is just to never have to cross that bridge in the first place. So
absolutely. Yeah. It's yeah, that's absolutely. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I do love venomous stuff, but it's not happening with me.
Yeah, no, I've definitely gotten to the point where I'm not adding to it. I'm not going to hold stuff back unless I like really, really want to hold back certain babies, but just have the collection, keep it, breed it, enjoy it, and just have it be reasonable.
Yeah.
So
that's cool.
I always knew that like I had to do venomous. Like I wasn't going to not be able to do it as a person. So I have scratched the itch effectively. I feel like
did.
So,
yeah, pretty impressively. Yeah, it's
I've pulled it off. I mean, I bred ridge nose rattlesnakes last year, which was like,
oh, that's really cool.
That's like the one I wanted to breed. So
how were they to get feeding?
One was great. The others were a nightmare. Yeah, that's the other thing. Like I don't know what it is about me. I hate picky feeders, or I'm very lucky that I've gotten to the point of like having some contacts, people who want to buy litters fresh out of mom.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. Okay, perfect. Like take them right away. I love it. I don't have the impulse of, Patrick and I talk about this, like retailing venomous snakes. No. I'll stick with my scrubs and my colubrids as far as that goes. I would much rather just send them over there. Not to deal with picky feeders and even worse, the vetting tons and tons of customers and stuff like that.
Venomous, yeah, you really got to be careful with that kind of thing.
Yeah, no doubt. So keeping it kind of like and from a business standpoint too, it's a much smaller market, and it's the animals don't go for quite as much as some other stuff, most of what we've been talking about tonight. So, a couple of people, can make like a legitimate business out of it. But if you're not like the top of the top, you're probably not going to be able to, generate enough revenue to really justify it for yourself. So,
all right, okay,
better as a hobby to me.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah,
I do like them, and I as I say, I love going to Bob's place and seeing kind of all the stuff that he's got, and that scratches that itch for me. It's no
doubt about it.
Yeah.
Well, man, I feel bad I've kept you as long as I have, but this has been a fantastic conversation. It's damn near midnight.
No, it's great. I love doing it.
So, but yeah, I mean, we've gotten comments along the way just how great this was, and I second all of those. I'm very glad that I was able to have you on the show and talk snakes for a while. And you're someone in the industry that I've always looked up to and admired, and I'm grateful to get that you're someone I know, call a friend, and then have on the show. It's definitely something that I'm very, very happy about. So
no, thanks, Steve. I really appreciate that. It's always great hanging out. It was good seeing you at Tinley.
Yeah,
it's been a couple of years since I saw you because of the moving from Oklahoma and not getting to the Dallas shows and stuff like that there. So
yeah, well, you didn't miss much of the Dallas shows aside from the Bill Stiegel parties. That was
I never got to those. So yeah. Well, maybe one day, but yeah, no, it's great coming on. Thanks for the invite. It's always fun to sit and talk. I'll talk snakes with anybody for any length of time.
Yes,
so
no doubt about it.
Well,
for anybody who wants to keep up with what you're doing, check out Available Animals. Where are the best places to get a hold of you and follow you on the old internet?
Yeah, I kind of do most of my stuff on Instagram. Just under Boa Booth. I've got a Facebook page, but I don't really use it for a Boa Booth Facebook page, but I haven't used it in years, I don't think. And my own Facebook page, I just kind of keep generally to myself, just for fun. There's never any snakes posted on, or very rarely. So people that send me friend requests on that there, I don't think would be too interested to see pictures of my kids and and stuff like that there, but Instagram, that kind of works. So we're doing that there. And I suppose I can say that Nick Mutton and myself are starting to record a new podcast that I think it's called Beneath the Scales, and it's kind of bringing science and herpetology and herpetoculture together.
Wonderful.
So we've got some cool episodes coming up on island boa evolution. We're going to be doing, I think we're going to be doing a Chilobothris. So we've got guest people coming on, the kind of researchers, professors, and so on.
Wow.
So we're doing that there. We're probably going to record some more of the Boas podcast with Keith McPeak.
Cool.
That kind of fizzled out for a bit, but we've been talking over the last couple of days, and we're going to think about recording a new one of those. I just saw someone asking about Sonoran anarthristic type 2 leopards. I should have a litter this year. I've got a female that's gravid, an anarthristic het leopard bred to an anarthristic leopard, so they're pure sigma. And I've also got an anarthristic leopard female that was bred to a Sonoran hypo leopard male, so there should be hypo leopard het anaries as well. So I should have some of those this year.
All right.
It's a project that the anary type 2 originated in my collection in 2002. Wow. And I've kind of sat on it. I didn't invest much effort in it for a long time, so that they will have those this year. We should have a couple of litters. So so watch for my boa booth Instagram page. I try to, when females ovulate or whatever, I try to take pictures when things are breeding. So I've been a bit lax at the moment because I've been so busy at work, so busy with the kids, and we've done a bunch of travel, and we've got a lot more travel coming up. But keep an eye on that there. I've tried in the past to update it every other day. I haven't done that for a while, but we're going to be going through a bunch of updates for things in the next kind of week or two.
Wonderful.
And then hopefully, you'll see me at Tinley in March, October, and then hopefully the Atlanta show in August if I can make it.
Okay. And the podcast with Nick, when is that going to be debuting? Do you guys know yet?
It's probably going to be a couple of months. What we're doing is we're recording multiple episodes, so we have a bank of them there to start releasing them. Because one of the problem with the Boas podcast was we ran into recording issues for a bunch of them where the sound was terrible, so we lost a bunch of interviews that we'd done.
Oh shoot!
And then just trying to fit in 3 people plus a guest, trying to coordinate timelines was difficult. So
sure.
We're trying to do that a little bit differently now. So with Nick and I, we can certainly record during the day, which could be easier sometimes with guests and stuff. So we're banking those, and then once we get 4 or 5 recorded, but then we'll start releasing them. So I'm hoping within the next 2 months. I was just chatting to Nick, or texting Nick yesterday, that we've got the next guest lined up. So
cool. And the podcast is kind of under the NPR network, correct?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Okay. Very cool.
So it'll be called Beneath the Scales.
All right.
So Lucas Lee is behind the scenes helping us, record the stuff. He takes care of a lot of it, and then me and Nick just talk shit. So
perfect.
So you can imagine how long that goes on for.
Every episode is 6 hours.
Yeah. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to that one there.
That's awesome. Well, Warren, thank you once again for coming on the show tonight. This was fantastic. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thanks for everybody that tuned in. It's great. I've really enjoyed it.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for watching and or listening. I'll catch you all back here next week for a new episode.